Alright, everybody. How's it going? So we're back at the usual setup. I'm gonna remove this message. Back at the usual setup. No longer in prison. Let's get the stream likes up to 100. How was prison? It was okay. It was okay. So, we have an important discussion today before it's even getting to the chapter. I've not read the chapter, but I generally know what happens because I saw spoilers, so I guess I'm actually going to react to the chapter here. I guess. This is a unplanned chapter reaction because I was trying to figure out what to do today. I just didn't get time to read it. So I was trying to figure out what to do today. Because the problem, like, this has never happened before, as far as I can recall, that One Piece Scans puts it out like a week ahead of TCB Scans, practically, like 4 or 5 days, right? When did it come out? Came out on Friday or something like that. Came out a while back. So I don't know. I asked TCB what they're doing. They said Wednesday's the release date. So for me, it's like, if I do a stream today on a general topic, on a normal Monday, if I do a stream on a general topic, doesn't matter what the topic is, normal Monday, there's already people coming into chat talking about spoilers that are going to come out for the week, right? So it's hard to, it's already, it's manageable, but it's hard on a normal Monday to, well, I don't really do anything. Mods mostly take care of it. But for mods, it's difficult to keep track of spoilers and everything that people are trying to do on Mondays. This is a different case where now it's like, probably like 50% of people have read the chapter already. So it's like, if I do a normal Monday stream, if you're trying to tune in just to talk about whatever the topic is, and then you've got 50% of people who have read OP scans coming in, and they just want to talk about the chapter, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what the correct solution was. So I think what I'm going to do is just, this stream will be a 1090 discussion. If we do it again on Thursday or something different, I don't know yet. The actual chapter review that I put out, I'll wait till TCB puts it out. So it's kind of a middle ground type thing. But there's a discussion to be had here, which is like, why do the scans why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be so complicated? Rachia, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 10 months. Welcome back, Mr. Morj. Say, that's a nice poster behind you. Oh yeah, that poster needs to be swapped out. I just haven't gotten around to it. It needs to be swapped out to the next thing. It is a nice poster, though, and if you want to get it, you can get it at the Morj store, which I will drop right here. It's a really, really good poster, actually. The only reason it's time to swap it out is because it's time to swap it out. But if you want the poster, you know what? I'll just pin it here. I'll just pin it here for the people. Caleb Brown says, since Morj hasn't read it yet, no spoilers in chat till he's done. No, honestly, the spoilers are fine because I know what happens in the chapter. Like, I've seen the... As I was making this decision today, I've already I saw spoilers and stuff like that. I know stuff about... I don't know every aspect of the chapter, but I generally know what happens this chapter. 02657, always good to see you. Thanks for coming through. 20 says you've pushed a lot of members only content out. Is it because of all the new signups? Also, Crocomom. It is a lot. Well, so it is a lot because of so many new signups. So I felt like doing more member content, but also, fun fact, I'm not just pushing out new member content. The reason you can see members only stuff on the channel is just because there's a new option that YouTube put out, which is, I didn't even know about this before. The editor of the channel actually found this out, which is if you publish something that's members only, you can actually also make it it shows up for non-members, but they just can't watch it, I guess. So just to add more eyes, or at least make more people aware that there's members only content, we've just started making members only videos visible, but if you're not a member, you can't actually watch it, if that makes sense. Sleeping Danger says, why is the hair looking clean? Okay, let me ask. Do people like the hair? Because let me explain what happened. So, for the longest time I've been wanting... This is earlier today. For the longest time I've been wanting to grow my hair out longer. For the longest time I've been wanting to grow my hair out longer, alright? But I always stop because once your hair hits like this awkward growing out phase, you're kind of like, do I want to let it go through this awkward growing out phase or just chop it short, right? You kind of got to make that decision. And you, like, pretty much every time I've gone with, like, let me just chop it off. Let me make it shorter, right? For the first time, I'd hit the awkward hair growing out phase, and I was like, let me actually... I like my usual barber, but the guy doesn't give suggestions that much. So I was like, okay, let me actually go to, like, a real hair person, like a more upscale hairstylist that charges... This was, like... She charges, like, $70, basically. But she does a full consultation and everything. It's like, do this with your hair. Just trust me, blah, 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 blah. So I actually paid for that today, just to see what it is. And she did this. She's like, this isn't the final product. This is for your growing out phase. It grows out to a certain degree, and then she'll reshape it again, basically. So this is temporary, but we're going to roll with this for a while. There's a style that she has in mind that she showed me pictures of that she's working towards. Whether we ever get there, I don't know. But, yeah, we're going to roll with longer hair for a little bit. 02657, thanks for the 10. Grow it out and style it like Frankie. That'd be funny. Yeah, 70. Because it's just, I don't know. It's, well... To be fair, 70 is not for the haircut itself, so it's a two-part thing. So next time I go back, it's not 70. So it's a consultation, plus she did all that other stuff. She did, like, the hot towel, the shampoo, the, like, massage and stuff like that. So all the frills get added on the first time. In the future, it's more like, significantly less than that, but I don't know what the actual price is. I just know that the first time you show up there, consultation fee for actually figuring out what you want to change your hair to, because that's, like, as I understand, that's like two separate services. There's the hairstylist service, which is doing all that extra stuff, and then there's the cutting service, which is just cutting the hair. So that was a one-time thing. But yeah, if you're ever interested in going to a hairstylist that's like a good hairstylist or whatever, then the consultation fee is separate from whatever. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like in the future. Spade says, have you seen any of 1072? Yes, I have. It looks way better. It looks way better. I think that, like, you know what's something simple? 1072, it did the Roadrunner thing, for example, right? So I don't understand when people are like, no, we can't actually have Looney Tunes style animations. I'm like, why can you do the Roadrunner thing, but you can't do the Kaido Whirlwind thing? Isn't it like the same type of stuff? Next time is 90. It just keeps going up each time. Alright. Let's read this chapter real quick so we can talk about this chapter. Let me ask real quick, okay? I'll do a poll, just to understand. I think... How do I say this? I think that the number of people that probably decided to read OP scans this week is probably higher than usual. Would I be correct in that? So I'm just going to make a poll to kind of understand where people are at. I assume everyone here has read the chapter, because there's no reason to be here if you didn't read the chapter. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Okay, so, do you normally read OP scans, read TCB scans, but I read OP this week? Read TCB, but read OP scans this time. Or... Okay. So do you normally... Here are the questions. Do you normally read one OP scans? Do you normally read TCB, but just read OP scans this time? Or you didn't read the chapter? Those are the options. This is what we're working with. Okay, so most people read TCB but read One Piece scans this time. That's what I kind of figured, which is why I ended up doing this stream. So again, I think chapter review I'm going to wait on dropping till after TCB drops their stuff. Yeah, chapter review I'm just going to wait on. But today's stream, I think functionally we couldn't do it with any other topic. I was like, either I cancel the stream for today, or we do another topic and we pretend that everyone in chat hasn't read the recent chapter. I don't know. Hawkbuck, thanks. Because you're 4'2", do you sit on a booster seat in the barber? Yes, it is actually a children's barbershop. Alright, guys. It is time to read this chapter. Let's see. Was it a good chapter, at least? It seemed like it was a good chapter, as far as I could see from spoilers and stuff. Let's go to OP scans. This whole scans war, it's just getting I hate it so much. I'm like, why do things have to be this way? I wonder how bad a scanlation would have to be for people to not read it. Because OP scans is pretty bad, but I understand it's been getting better. So what's the limit? Right? Where do we draw the line? I also hate OP Scans' user interface. I feel like their site is just a mess to get through. I have to click 10 different things to get to the chapter. Mike 4PF says it's not a war, lol. It's literally just TCB. No, it's a war. OP Scans is out here. They beat TCB by like 5 days here. Okay. Alright, let's see. I'm not going to share screen because I get in trouble. I'll kind of vaguely read out what's happening. I'm not a React YouTuber, just remember that. This is a one time only, because I got no time to read the chapter today. This was a late decision that... Not a late decision, I mean... It was just not... You know, it was a today decision that, okay, we're going to cover the chapter. So Luffy's talking. I know that Luffy has a conversation with Saturn. I also don't do the voices, so don't ask me to do the voices. Get Big News Morgans, get Vivi. Oh wait, you know what? Let me capitalize. Hold on. You always get let me change the title to reaction stream. People just like tuning into reaction streams more. So, it's just the way it is. I'm saying thanks. Yo, Morj, would you sell your channel for $200,000? Would I sell my channel for $200,000? That's actually a fun question. Because it's like... I think I would say yes, just because I could invest that money into something like, into getting the business that I had going previously back and just like way, way, way better because so much more funds and resources. And then the thing is, beyond that, in terms of wanting to continue doing One Piece stuff, and just continuing to talk about the series, I could just do that again. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have the same exact numbers. It would probably be way lower to start with. But, you know, your core base would just come back, and that's ultimately what I care about. You know? So, I think I would probably do something like that, but, I don't know. It would be tricky. Damn, Morj hates us. Sell out. No, it wouldn't. I'm not saying I would stop doing One Piece. The question is basically... Would you be fine trading out, like, your current subscriber count, etc.? Like, my videos would still be up, right? They'd still exist. People could still watch them, right? Like, people, like, whoever I'm selling it to is not going to destroy the channel as far as I know, right? So the content I have out still exists. I can still put out more One Piece content. And if you guys want to watch me, you can still go watch me. So, I don't really know what the... Who loses here? Whose problem would it be? Isn't it a win-win-win? We're all happy? If they're going to destroy the channel, that's a different conversation. But I assume... Are they going to destroy the channel? Someone elaborate on the hypothetical. I just assumed it's like somebody else owns the channel, and now they can just profit off of it, put out videos or something. Channel goes to Parvision, then I wouldn't sell it. The Outback Panda says, "Oh, that artist you hit up on Twitter is gas. I commissioned him before. They never responded to me. I was just like, damn." Okay, let's keep going. So reading the chapter. How are you able to commission it? How are wait? How are you able to commission that artist, but I can't commission that artist? I would like to think that, like I carry a little bit of like. I know Twitter's a different place, but I would like to think that there'd be some interest in. I don't know. I don't know. I'm saying thanks. Do you think Akainu will go down before Blackbeard? That's a really difficult one, cause I feel like Blackbeard, end of story Blackbeard, whatever powers he has at that point will be greater than Akainu's in my mind. But I just don't know, like, final villain. Like, no, not final villain, but like, I just don't. Yeah, like it just feels like Blackbeard would get defeated before it's time for Akainu, Marines, World Government. But it doesn't make sense. Like Akainu would probably be weaker than Blackbeard at that point. So I don't know. I mean, it doesn't always have to be stronger, but I feel like Akainu might be solidly weaker than Blackbeard at that point. Wade Turner says just 200k is too low. Yeah, but I feel like I lose pretty much nothing, because again, if my viewers like me, then they'll just come back to whatever the new thing I do is. Again, it wouldn't be straight back to the same numbers, but it wouldn't take that long. The Bando one's out. Thanks. Holy shit, Morj escaped jail. Yes, I did. I know Jagrawal, thanks. This was the first chapter since Onigashima that really drew me back in. Really? This one? Okay, I'm interested. Pre-time skip vibes and all the plot lines just clicked for me. Oda won me back. This was the first chapter? I could understand if you're saying, like, this storyline or something like that, but let's see. Okay, you're Straw Hat Luffy, correct? Who is alive with you in Labo phase right now? If you count the injured ones, then our number is... Don't say anything, Luffy. Ka-chink. Yeah, I heard about the Robin bit. I like... This is going to sound really random, but I like when Oda lists things. So Oda does this sometimes. I know it's not, like, unique to Oda or whatever, but I just like it when it happens. Like, in Dressrosa, when Nami's like, right now we have 3 cards that we're fighting for or whatever. And then she lists off the 3 cards. And then they're like, okay, that really sets the stakes of the plot. Makes sense. So Saturn's saying we have to protect 3 things. Physical safety of York. Surprised that... I remember this also happened in Thriller Bark. Like, after they got their shadow stolen, they were like, Usopp was like, we have to protect, like, 3 things. Luffy was like, food, Nami, and, like, something else. And Usopp was like, yeah, food's not important. It doesn't crack the list. Physical safety of York, the punk records, which constitute Vegapunk's brain. Okay, so I like that that's still important. I still feel like something's going to happen to punk records by the end of this. And the power plant needed to produce the Mother Flame. I'm surprised he didn't say that first. I feel like he'd care about that the most. Everything else can be lost except for those. Alright. But sir, Rob Lucci and his squad are still there. Oh. Humans are no different from insects. I'm liking these Saturn lines. Saturn's pretty cool. I like Saturn. Nicholas Sealstern says Kizaru is an honorable evil. Wish he had more time. Well, we don't know how much more time he has. Let's see. Like a lot of Ohara references this arc. So many Ohara references. We just got the Enies Lobby reference with the Lucia Kingdom destruction and everything. Okay. Oh, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. This is a nice big spread of all the characters. We've gotten several of these this arc. We got one to end the last chapter. We've got one right before the whole Vegapunk murder mystery storyline. Yeah. These have been nice. Fuck, Kaku got fucked up. Oh my god. Kaku's on his deathbed. Lucci's saying, I know how you feel, forget about it and get some rest. That's hilarious. Lucci's still salty over the Luffy loss again. Because that was the tiebreaker. Because Lucci beat him once in Water 7, and then Luffy beat him once in Enies Lobby. So Lucci just lost the tiebreaker. Shaka, Pythagoras, Edison. Edison is still alive. Yeah, I forgot. I already read in the spoilers that some of the Vegapunks are dead. I thought Oda would make a bigger deal out of that, but like what that means for Vegapunk's personality, or if that affects him in some way, if he feels like he's lost a part of his identity, but I don't think he gives a shit. Edison is still alive. Why does that matter? At this point, they seem so disposable. What's Lucci up to? What is Lucci up to? Man, Lucci's such a cool character. I feel bad that he showed up to get embarrassed by Luffy again. Poor guy. Alright. Didn't realize all these other, yeah. Are these mostly pretty much all Cypher Pole? These people in the basement? Why don't I draw so many big spreads this chapter with so many characters? I guess he was having fun. Aren't the Seraphim your allies? Like, it seems like he put a lot of effort into this random Cypher Pole panel. Like all these guys. Damn, so the bubbles are strong. Really strong. Made with sea... Oh, the bubbles are made with sea stone. That makes sense. They all have devil fruits. Yep. That's another Saboti reference right there. Bubbles and shit mattering again. Are you kidding? So that was the answer? So Hancock just... That's funny. I mean... How did they defeat the other Seraphim though? Did they just catch him in bubbles? So emotions are transferred as well. Fighting skills were stated to be transferred as well. This dynamic is definitely a bit weirder. That Hancock is a child, and she's still interpreting things this way. This way. 1 second. Justin Holland, always good to see you, man. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 10 months. I would call Luffy a wildcard chosen one that is destined to bring whatever kind of dawn he wants. Plus, he's more free than the freedom fighters. Yeah, I think just though that the type of dawn that he's gonna end up bringing is going to be very similar to the type of dawn that everybody wants to happen. And he is more free than the freedom fighters. I would agree, just because, like when Luffy attacks Enies Lobby, it's not because he's got some sort of agenda, like grander agenda for freedom, right? He's just doing it to get back a friend, which in itself is just, in my mind, that's like a more free spirited approach to the, like, you just do what you want and what you feel like doing. That happens to that happens to stand in the way of authoritarian regimes and everything like that, as opposed to actively planning a rebellion and like saying you live for, like, there's a difference between just being free versus trying to fight for your freedom, I suppose. I also think that tomorrow's video might be interesting to a lot of people. I think tomorrow's video is a very, very good video, by the way. Very, very good video. Wait for tomorrow. I don't think... I know it's my video, so it's like, obviously I'm gonna say stuff like that, but I think tomorrow's video is like a crazy interesting video. Okay, so she says York is saying that she didn't share the password information with the brains. So I would assume that means that the... Sorry, my neck. I would assume that means that, like, the issue that people had was, they share their memories at the end of each day. I assume that York was just being selective with what she was sharing. Ships, 30,000 Marines. There's 9 Vice Admirals, 1 Admiral, 1 Celestial Dragon. Yeah, I saw Elbath mentioned in the spoilers. Good shit. Lucci's just pissed at Stussy. Or it's something else. Wait, that is Stussy, right? Yeah. Good northeast, okay. Yeah, this is the diagram section of the arc where Oda's gonna break out the diagrams, and we gotta keep track of that shit. I feel like... Okay. Alright. Oh, cool. Vegapunk is impressed by the Sunny. That is cool. Finally, some Frankie Vegapunk interaction that's, feels like there's some acknowledgement there of their shared craft. At least from Vegapunk's end, I was hoping for something like that. This feels like a very long chapter. Wait a second. So could Bonnie... This is a suspicious panel, right? Why did he get in a good mood all of a sudden? Could Bonnie be Katarina Devon? I feel better now that I gave up on killing Vegapunk. It seems like a straightforward reason. We still don't know why she... There's so many questions I have. Why did she give up on killing Vegapunk? Don't want to miss this member. Let me see real quick. Bingle the Oop, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 10 months. Where is everyone reading this chapter? Did everyone just hop over to OP Scan's garbage because TCB isn't here yet? Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And again, normally I wait for TCB scans, etc. But with this week, it would have been impossible for me to do. I couldn't do a stream today without the sheer number of... I think, put it this way. I think a lot of people are okay waiting, one extra day to get TCB scans between Wednesday and Thursday. I think when one chapter is out, like 5 days before TCB scans, I think a lot of people are just going to end up reading that version, especially because when it's out so early, it's hard to just avoid other people talking about it. If you're on Reddit, Twitter, anything like that, even just YouTube with people already wanting to put out videos and everything like that. So I think it just becomes very difficult to avoid, which leads to more people just switching over and reading the OP scans, which again compounds the effect of more people talking about it, and then it just trickles till eventually most people who would wait till TCB end up reading OP scans, right? So that's what's happened. I did a poll at the beginning of this stream, and vast majority of people said normally we wait for TCB. This week we did OP scans. So again, I just couldn't have done a stream today considering the number of people that have already read the chapter. So it would just be impossible to keep it spoiler free when the majority of chat is wanting to talk about the chapter. So we're covering OP scans, but I'm saving the chapter review till after TCB scans drops. I think that's just the in-between ground that I landed on. Anyway, I think that Bonnie looking like Katarina Devon to me, just because this is just... like, it feels like there's a moment being made out of this. At the same time, we don't know why Bonnie changed her mind about the Vegapunk stuff. We haven't gotten some insight there. But maybe it is genuine. I think we gotta wait for better translations here, right? Maybe it is genuine that, she saw the Kuma flashback and really feels more upbeat or something like that. But to me, something seems off. Okay. This chapter is cool. Why are there so many big... It feels like there are a lot of big panels this chapter, you know what I mean? Like, just the lineup of ships and everything like that. It feels a bit... This feels like a long chapter, but it also feels like Oda really took the time to just draw some larger, more fleshed out panels. Maybe this is the new eyesight kicking in. Or also maybe just because we're about to start a big conflict, he's trying to hype up the, set the scene very well. Stride was talking arrogantly to deceive us in believing that he has control over the whole situation. You don't know Luffy at all, man. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't have agendas like that. He's confident because he's confident. Oh, let's get the stream likes up to 300 real quick. Doing that will go... I can't ignore a man who's determined to fight for his duty. Doing that will go against my ideals. So we're finally getting some insight into Kizaru's ideals. I feel like we've been missing that for his character since his introduction, which I didn't mind. I think I've just always read Kizaru as basically, you don't need every character to be super fleshed out. I liked Kizaru as he was, as this just sort of trolly broke but ultimately obedient soldier. But I like that we're getting some more character focus on him. This is funny because Saturn's ready to have Lucci and everyone in there just die, and Lucci, even right now, is helping them out. Good guy Lucci, huh? Tell the Rokushiki users to be on standby. So many Rokushiki users. That's cool. This one guy looks like Oars. Frankie's never been on a sky island. He should enjoy this more. Okay, Kizaru's making his move. Alright. See, I'd seen the panel of the scene of Kizaru and Sentomaru clashing. I'd already seen that come up on Twitter. I was curious of the setup, and there's no BS about it. Like, Kizaru does his usual thing that we see him always do. He travels as fast as light. Sentomaru's there to block it. Sentomaru did say from, Saboti that his defense is the best in the world. I personally did not buy it. But I still don't buy it. But, I feel like he won't last long against Kizaru, but this is pretty good, right? Luffy's face, someone very strong is coming. This is surprising to me that Luffy's having this level of reaction. Just because, that's not how he was with Green Bull when Green Bull showed up. That's not... I mean, even with Kaido and Big Mom, like... I don't know. I got to think on that one. Alright, let me see what I missed. Oh, let's get the stream likes up to 300 real quick. Great chapter. I think that was a very good chapter. I did know most of the beats of the chapter, but, like, I think that this is kicking off the Egghead conflict really, really, really well. I still think that we got a few chapters to go, probably, before stuff really gets crazy, just because Vegapunk listed several steps that they kind of gotta... several hoops that they gotta jump through to get to their goal. And, I think we can expect some fights with Vice Admiral, stuff like that. So I'm curious, like, how long before we end up getting to some of the... Yeah, like, I'm curious if next chapter is another sort of setup chapter, if, like, does the ball really get rolling next chapter? It could get rolling next chapter. If we think back to Saboti, what was always so fucking crazy about Saboti was once stuff started, it just got more and more insane with every next chapter. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like that here. All right, let me catch up. Kino the Far, thanks. I ended up getting a 163 on my LSAT practice test. If that was your first practice test, that's a great score to get. For me, so my final LSAT score when I took it was 173. My first practice test that I took was 165. And after that, I got 165, which I was really happy about, because that was close to my goal of, like, getting above 170. After that, like... The only studying I did for the LSAT was, like, there's a practice book, basically, and then you can just do some practice tests, and then you go take it, right? So the first one I took, I got 165. I was like, good stuff, right? Then the next one I took, I got lower than that. And then the next one I took again, I think I got lower than that again. Or, like, it took a few more for me to actually beat my first score, basically. But then by, like, the time I had there's 10 tests in the book. By the time I was, like, 7 or 8 in, I was like, okay, that's good enough. Now I can score above 170. I'm good. Here's one tip that I will give you that I think worked for me. All right? And it's an anime-esque tip, almost. So, in the LSAT practice book that I had, you're just circling the right answer, pretty much. You're circling the right answer from what I remember, and then you're going to check in the word bank or whatever. Or, like, not the answer bank, okay? And then, in the actual test, you're going to have a Scantron, though, which gives you... It's going to take a little bit more time to bubble shit in. So, I thought about that from the start, and I was like, I'm going to... Like, the amount of time that you have to take each section of the test in the practice test, I will subtract 2 minutes off of that. So, if the practice book is saying you have 25 minutes to do this section, I would be like, okay, I'll give myself 23 minutes, and that way I'm giving myself, like I'm preparing myself for the actual test where I will need to take additional time to do the Scantrons. I bet most people don't do that. But I did do that. So it's like, I say it's anime-esque because it's like training with weights on. It's like, okay, you have 25 minutes to do this section. I'm like, I'm giving myself 23 minutes to give myself a buffer for the future taking of the test where I have to fill it in like Scantrons. You're not just circling and stuff. Which is why I think like when I took the final test, like the actual test, 173 was the same as the best score I'd ever gotten on practice stuff because I was already training with harder time constraints. You should do that, Kino the Far. See what happens. Kino the Far says, also your head looks small today. Don't really know how to respond to that, but I'll take it as a compliment, I guess. Niall Show, thanks for the 5. Kaido or Big Mom have to come back. There has to be an outside force to crash Luffy and Shanks' reunion. Shanks can't be the bad guy if Elbaf's arc. Why can't Shanks be the bad guy? I also feel like Blackbeard could be the bad guy. Because Blackbeard, you know, if you look back at... Like, we know Blackbeard and Shanks, that's a collision that's waiting to happen. We also know that, you know, trickery, deceit, those are things that we experienced last time with the Davy Back fight, and Blackbeard's crew is known for that. We also know that Shanks is on the lookout for Blackbeard right now, last we saw him. So, I feel like Kaido and Big Mom coming back would just be boring at this point, in my opinion. Wrench Doctor 2000, thanks very much. Chapter end equals Oda's classic hype over substance. Oof. Why? Why is that? It's just... I feel like it's fine to have a... Okay, you're saying, like, Luffy's reaction? I feel like Luffy's reaction might have been a bit too... It's just not a believable reaction at this point, you know? Because it's like... We saw how Luffy reacted with Green Bull showing up. He didn't care. Like, it was so relaxed and laid back. And it's like, okay, if you want to say, well, Kizaru's stronger than Green Bull, cool. But we've also seen this so many other times with other shit, you know? Like, Luffy's not freaking out about... you know, facing Kaido, facing Big Mom and stuff like, at this point, it just feels off to me. I think Luffy getting, you know, showing emotion and stuff at Kizaru being here, it makes sense. I just think that this is one of the most terrified faces I've ever seen Luffy make in the entire manga. And I feel like, he wasn't that scared even the first time he saw Kizaru way back in pre-time skip. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just like, I think at this point in the story, you kind of got to sell us a bit more on, like, I just feel like if you're going to get a reaction like that out of Luffy, it should feel a bit more earned rather than something that we feel like, you know, even if Kizaru is a strong challenge for Luffy, he's not going to be the greatest challenge. Like, he's not stronger than Kaido. You know what I mean? Like, if Luffy's laughing in Kaido's face, it just feels off that Luffy, with his entire crew around him, right? Like, entire crew. It's not just him, right? It's him and his entire Yonko crew there. He's, like, somewhat concerned about Kizaru. Like, not even concerned. He was scared. Like, it just looked like he was scared, basically. You know? It just looked like he was pretty scared. Yusuf says, nah, Luffy was scared that whole Kuma Sentomaru Kizaru. Yeah, I'm exaggerating, obviously, here. But it's just, like, this is a face that you would expect this expression back in that scene. You know, Sabaody pre-time skip. You know? And it's one of those things where I doubt that ultimately... I don't think that ultimately the Straw Hats are gonna be, like, I don't think Kizaru's just gonna come and fuck all of them up. Like, it's a Yonko and his entire crew. Right there, you know what I mean? Let's see. KidSmitty94, thanks. Unless they uploaded to Punk Records off screen, the conversation with Dragon from the beginning of the arc is lost with Shaka being dead. I liked it. That's a really good point. I like to think that they communicated with, spoke to Punk Records in that case. Because that's, you know, one of the good uses of Punk Records, that you can store information that otherwise is not, has not been shared between characters. That's a really good point. Adam Sierra says, I think Katarina infiltrated Marines, not the Straw Hats. The Marines, not the Straw Hats. I don't know. I feel like it'd be more interesting if she infiltrated the Straw Hats, but yeah, you might be right on that. Keenan, thanks for the 10. Many people are saying Devon is Bonnie, but I disagree. We saw her at the start of the chapter, stuffing her face like the fat fuck she is, and asked for more pizza, her favorite food. Sanji just rizzed her up. Here's the problem with that, though. Jewelry Bonnie's her epitaph is Big Eater Jewelry Bonnie. So you could say it the other way, which is that, like, if you were to try and impersonate someone like that, you would just do, like you would play up to their one most known personality trait. You know what I mean? So she's known as Big Eater Jewelry Bonnie. Her love for food is probably her most famous trait. So if Katarina Devon just like showed up, then probably one of the easiest things that she could do is probably just like eat a lot, ask for more food, stuff like that. Sanji just rizzed her up. I mean, it's possible. It's totally possible. I'm just pointing out the possibility. You know what I mean? Both things are possible at the end of the day. You could say, well, pizza is her favorite food. That's like a more specific detail. But at the same time, I mean, if she's well known for, like, I'm sure people know that Big Mom loves sweets, you know? I'm sure people know that Kaido loves sake. I feel like if Jewelry Bonnie's whole thing is being known as Big Eater Jewelry Bonnie, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, her love of, like, she was introduced eating pizza at Sabaody. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, even with bare minimum, like, information or, like, research, the Blackbeard Pirates might know that. She might just be happy because of Kuma's memories and discovering something from Kuma's memories. Although Kuma's memories were fucking tragic, so don't know about that either. Okay, Joe doses after Egghead. I want Akainu to have a fine I'll do it myself moment. Please, God, let Akainu do something. The funny thing about Akainu is that he got to do so much during the Marineford War. He got to do so much during that war that, like, I would never say we're starved of more, Akainu action and stuff. Like, he's gotten to do stuff, you know what I mean? He was just so active during maybe the most important saga of One Piece so far that you could argue, like, we've gotten our, like, it's not like Shanks or Mihawk where we literally have never gotten anything for them for the entire, like, or okay, let's say Mihawk, right? Shanks, we've gotten some bits, but, it's not like Mihawk who's never gotten anything in the story. But it's kind of just like, it's been so long, and it's also just like, he's been made to look like a real dweeb post time skip, just like the desk stuff was funny for a while, and now it's just sad. It's really just like, man, they've killed this man's spirit. He should be out and about, murdering pirates and stuff like that. It's wrong to have him locked away behind a desk. This is what they talk about in Japan too, because Japanese culture, as I understand, it's like a huge cultural problem in Japan right now, which is people are overworked. People are afraid to leave their desks because they see their bosses working so late at night. And that's definitely what Akainu's going through right now. I mean, he's the boss, so he's like, I've got to be here Sunday, Saturday. I've got to be staying in late. I've got to set a good example for my people. It's probably driving him insane. I feel like Akainu might be Oda's representation of the overworking problem that the people have in Japan. And what if we never get to see him fight again? Because that's how far Oda wants to go with this little metaphor or analogy. It's just like, yeah, office work kills the spirit of, like, so many people every year. Your favorite character, once you put him behind a desk, succumb him to Japanese culture, it's over. So I don't know. Yeah, what if Oda wants to go real deep? We never see Akainu fight again because work culture is the true greatest villain. I would love to see Akainu fight, though, to respond to Jojo. Justin Holland, thanks for the 10. The newest God of War games and the Legend of Spyro. I forgot about Spyro. Game series Legend of Spyro. Legend of Spyro is still released? Let me tell you, the first time I ever actually wanted a video game, when I was a kid, I went to my friend's place when I was in, like, kindergarten or first grade or something. Probably, like, first grade or something like that. And they had Spyro, and it looked fun to me. But I never got video games till, like, I got a GameCube in 4th grade. That was nice. And then after that, I didn't get a new console till, like, 11th grade, where my parents finally gave me the Wii, even though it had been out for years and years and no one played it anymore. But anyway, Spyro has a special place in my heart because that was the first time I saw a video game being played, and I was like, this actually looks cool. This looks fun. I'd like to play that. Never owned a Spyro game. Would have been nice. Okay, so you're saying the new God of War games and Legend of Spyro talk about fate versus free will best, in my opinion. I still have not progressed further in the new God of War game. I want to finish it up. I want to wrap it up so then I can switch over and play Tears of the Kingdom. I can see where the writing and storytelling is actually getting better. I did not give it credit at first. I should have waited longer. But at the same time, I just don't have that much fun playing it, to be perfectly honest. But, you know, maybe it'll grow on me more. I'm still not that far in the game because I just took such a long break. And I have no idea about Spyro. Your second statement is, final poneglyph search will not be straightforward. Morgan's, Underworld, Elbaf, and Man with the Mark. I don't know where Morgan's plays into this. I feel like other characters could have a lot of trouble finding the final poneglyph, but I feel like for the Straw Hats, it's just got to be waiting at Elbaf, right? Next arc around the corner. GDN, thanks for the 5. You can see Kizaru's warp particles to the left of Luffy. I think he just teleported up to him, and at the end, and light, someone is coming familiar. So you think that Sentomaru just got taken out pretty quickly. I wouldn't be surprised. Kino the Far, thanks for the 5. Oh, I don't plan on law school. My friends challenged me to take the LSAT. I got my insurance license last week, though. That test was kind of hard. I feel like, okay, if they're making you actually take the LSAT or just take a practice test, those are two different things. Because actually taking the LSAT, you got to pay for that from what I recall. It's been years, but I remember paying for it. I'm like, why am I paying to take a test? That just seems wrong. Right? You have to pay to take the LSAT? How much do you have to pay to take the LSAT? Okay, it's 125, so I guess if it's worth it to you, then just do it. HenchMe976, thanks for the 5. My practice LR was the highest and RC lowest. RC? Okay, you're talking about the sections of the test, right? Like, because I don't remember everything. I remember the logic puzzles. I remember the... Okay, you're saying reading comprehension, logical reasoning, right? Okay, it's been too long for me to remember the actual breakdown of the sections and stuff like that. For me, what I remember, the thing that was the hardest was initially, like, the logic games or whatever that they gave you. Like, Sally has 5 ice cream cones and John can have vanilla and chocolate, but then like Tom can have like hazelnut or whatever. Like, they gave you stuff like that, but just much more complicated, and that actually makes sense. And I was bad at those at first, but then you kind of figure out how you're supposed to approach them, and then those got a lot better. So you're saying then on my LSAT, my reading comprehension was highest and logical reasoning was lowest. Weird, got a 170 regardless though. I mean, it's just variation. It's just gonna be variation from like not each practice test is the same as the next. Like, the difficulties are always gonna vary by a little bit. Oh, Popa, thanks very much. Doesn't look like a clash in my opinion. More of a moment before contact. If Lucci can break through that defense, so can Kizaru. To be fair, Lucci's was a sneak attack, but I did get the sense that, yeah, Lucci's probably stronger than Sentomaru, and doesn't consider Sentomaru much of a threat. I also think that people underrated Lucci personally, just because he had to fight Luffy, you know? Like, that's not fair. He had to fight Luffy. Juan Carlos, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 1 month. Sabo greater than Luffy right now. I don't see Sabo struggling against Kaido. Dragon's right-hand man shouldn't struggle. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I have no response to that. Sabo greater than Luffy right now. Sabo greater than Kaido. I don't know. Abyssal Leviathan, thanks for the 5. With Aokiji and even now Kizaru getting fleshed out, are you more confident in Kaido getting a backstory? Oda seems to care about the OG admirals. I would love for... I feel like Akaino's backstory could be one of the most interesting in the series. Because even Aokiji, he got a backstory. He technically got a backstory. His was like him joining the Marines and everything like that, right? His training under Garp. The shaping of his philosophy a little bit. I like to think that... You could argue that Aokiji is a more significant character than Akainu. Akainu's more significant in the plot of One Piece and his role in the world, and probably his final role in the narrative if he's to be a final Luffy villain. But Aokiji's been a character for longer and had a more... His storyline as a character has been much more focused on. So just because Aokiji got us a backstory to some degree doesn't necessarily mean we'll get one for Akainu. But I would love for that to happen, especially if Akainu ends up being a Luffy villain. Then I really, really would like for Akainu to get I mean, just the important villains recently have been getting backstories, right? Between Doflamingo, Big Mom, Kaido, even Katakuri got a little bit of a backstory. So I feel like it would be a damn shame if we didn't get one for Akainu. Abyssal Leviathan, thanks for the 5. Also, do you think Kizaru manipulating the dome, external light, is a hint at Logia awakening? We've never seen Kizaru manipulate other light. But other Logia can, right? Like, other Logia can manipulate... Is that true? I feel like that's true. They're not always making their own shit, right? As far as I remember. I gotta go back and rethink. Like, I gotta look at some shit again. But I feel like that's true. Might be wrong. With Logia Awakening, I feel like Logia Awakenings, it's something that I feel like it would be a really good arc to get because Vegapunk has talked about it, but at the same time, the fact that we didn't get to see Awakening from Aokiji versus Garp makes me a little bit hesitant to jump on, like, okay, this next thing's going to be Logia Awakening, this next thing's going to be Logia Awakening, just because I feel like the opportunities come by so many times and we just haven't gotten to see it yet. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. All right. Multi-2 Terminator, thanks. Do you think Brook knows anything about Zebek? No. I have stopped believing that Brook knows things. Just because... I mean, it would be cool if he knows some stuff and references something, but... You know, even with, like... He was like, oh, Roger, that was a rookie that was kind of getting popular during my time and stuff. You know, like... I don't know if Oda wants to use Brook as a gateway to the past, because I feel like the opportunity has come and gone. But, you know, maybe Oda's saving him for Zebek stuff. That'd be cool. Bingle the Oop, thanks for the 2. We wouldn't get a PTSD response before he got PTSD. I guess, but it's just like, you're saying like, okay, that gave Luffy PTSD, but it's also just like, Sentomaru doesn't freak him out like that. Kuma doesn't freak him out like that. I don't think you can go with like, and they were the ones that actually fucked him up. Like Luffy had almost no interaction with Kizaru, so I don't think PTSD's like, it's just not a valid thing for Luffy here, because it's like other characters would be the ones likely to give him PTSD, and he wasn't fazed by them. It's not like he's freaking out when Sentomaru's showing up. It's not like he's freaking out when he sees pacifistas or anything like that. In general, like it seems like Luffy's freaked out because Kizaru seems really strong. You know? That's pretty much it. Which seems off because Luffy's not freaked out by characters stronger than that. Unless it's Garp. Yeah, Garp has given Luffy extreme PTSD. Yusuf says it's a hype tool. I agree, but it's just like... when it feels forced, or like out of character practically. I would go so far as to say it almost feels out of character for Luffy at this point, because it's just such a stark contrast between how he reacted to Green Bull. And with Green Bull, it was like, it's just him and 4 Straw. Here he's got the entire Straw Hat crew, right? Like, it's him, Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy's been in such high spirits and so confident up till now in this arc. It's just such a stark contrast from how he reacted to Green Bull. And even if you want to make the argument that, like, the gap between Kizaru and Green Bull is just huge, which I don't believe. Like, I would believe Kizaru is stronger, but I don't think it's a gigantic gap. Kizaru's not stronger than Kaido. He's not stronger than Big Mom. And Luffy didn't give a shit about either of those two. Like, Big Mom rolled up, like, even before Luffy got his power-ups and stuff like that, right? Big Mom rolled up on Luffy inside Onigashima on the ground floor. And she was basically facing off with him. And Luffy was like, oh, it's Big Mom. Like, she's yelling at him. She's ready to go. Luffy's like, oh, it's Big Mom. I literally don't give a fuck. Like, go read that interaction again. So, this just feels so bizarre, man. Like, at this point, like, this is before Luffy even got as strong as he is now. So, at this point, when he's basically, Advanced Conquerors Haki, Yonko, Sun God, Gear 5th Luffy, I don't know. The FPS King Gaming says, Morj, it's my birthday. Happy birthday, man. Can you tell me your thoughts on Smoker being a foil to Aokiji and cross... Okay. Dude, Smoker... I don't want to talk about fucking Smoker, man, because Smoker at this point, I don't know, he at some point he was probably a foil to Aokiji. At this point, I don't fucking know. And Cross-Guild making a big move like Impel Down break-in. Okay, so let me talk about Cross-Guild first real quick. I think the idea of an Impel Down break-in is always very attractive because it's just such a cool idea, and, right now we've got potentially 2 Shichibukai trapped in there, right? Weevil and Doflamingo. So if they wanted to recruit more Shichibukai and just create a crew out of those guys, that would be great. I don't know if that's going to happen, though, because I wonder if Weevil is supposed to be intercepted or something before he gets taken all the way to Impel Down, unless he's already there. I might be wrong, but it seems like Weevil's storyline is more important to maybe Egghead's storyline, at least based on the Bakin connection. So I don't know quite there. And then if you're saying, like, well, the Cross-Guild will break in to save Doflamingo, Doflamingo is also such a genuinely evil character. It would be kind of like saving Enel or something like that. I just don't... I feel like Cross-Guild would stop going from these almost lovable rogues to just, like, a shitty organization. Like, in Cross-Guild right now, the only character that's a truly evil character is Crocodile. And even him, we've kind of shifted to a more gray area. Doflamingo, you can't shift to gray. So, I don't know. Cross-Guild causing a break-in would be cool, but I just don't know if that's going to happen. As for Smoker, like, with Smoker, it feels like Smoker is kind of to Aokiji what Aokiji was to Garp, and we've seen conversations between Smoker and Aokiji and everything, and there's definitely some degree of a protege type relationship there, but it also feels like Smoker just doesn't matter as much as a future of the Marines at this point. Kind of like more talented, faster growing characters like Kobe seem to matter more at this point. So I don't know. But happy birthday again. Flame, thanks for the 5. Akainu is being treated like Naruto after he became Hokage. Man can't do anything. Yeah, pretty much. Justin Holland, thanks for the 5. Why did the elders wait to deal with Luffy when he surfaced as a pirate if they were scared of the true power of his devil fruit, among other things, in your opinion? Just because the plot had to work that way, man. It's like, why wasn't Robin's bounty like 100 times higher? Because it should have been, right? Only person in the world that can reawaken the ancient weapons as far as the world government is concerned. Her bounty should have been like, not even like, I don't even know, like way higher. It should have been like Law's, like, why is Law's bounty not... Law's bounty is the stupidest fucking bounty in the world. Like, Robin, at least you can kind of, like, make up some reason. But Law's bounty should be 5 billion berry. It should be 5 billion berry because that's what his fruit is worth. And his fruit is him. His fruit, like, to get the fruit, you need him. There is no it doesn't make any fucking sense for him to be anything less than that. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like, imagine if there was like, I don't know, like a diamond trapped inside of a safe. And it's like, okay, well, we'll give you like $1 billion if you get the diamond, but we'll only give you like $1 million if you can get the safe. It's like the diamond's in the safe. The safe should have the same value as the diamond. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what does that even mean? I don't know. It should be $1 billion to retrieve that safe that has the diamond in it. That just makes sense. I don't fucking know. But sorry for that tangent, but let's just address this, which is that, you know, why did the elders wait to deal with Luffy? Why wasn't Luffy hunted down more, etc., etc.? It's just the plot had to work that way. It's not a great reason, but again, it's one of those things that I talked about in the last video, and people were saying like, no, Morj, like there's sun god references and stuff. It's like, it doesn't matter if there's sun god references. The first time, like, cool, that shows that Oda had an idea of the sun god and Nika and stuff from early on in the story, which I agree that he definitely did. And I think Oda planned the Gomu Gomu no Mi being special as well. I'm just saying that the first time that we as the readers were blindsided with the notion that Luffy's devil fruit was not just the rubber fruit, right? The first time that the community exploded with like, wait, what the fuck? It's something totally different. That was during the fight with Kaido itself. Because it just wouldn't have, it made no, if you guys even remembered when that was revealed, everyone was like, that doesn't even make any fucking sense, because like, we've gone so far in the story and no one, like the elders, the admirals, like no one in the story has ever suggested Luffy's fruit is special. Obviously it can't be special, because otherwise it would have been mentioned. That's what everyone was saying back then. And then eventually it was just revealed, like that was during the Who's Who bit, right? Everyone was like, no, that doesn't mean the fruit's special, right? That just, like, it just wouldn't make any fucking sense, because otherwise it would have been mentioned over and over and over again. Or it must have been a huge secret and nobody knew about it or something like that. Or it was just, like, forbidden to mention or something. And then some chapters later it's like, nope, it's been known that the Gomu Gomu no Mi is special. It was just never fucking brought up. No matter what Luffy did in the world, no matter what new crazy shenanigans he got up to, no matter the point that he even started being called the 5th Emperor of the Sea, just not important to bring up that, hey, this fucker has the fucking most important fruit that we've been looking for the past 800 years. Just doesn't need to be mentioned. That's why it was such a, like, out of the blue reveal that, hey, Luffy, your fruit's fucking special. You're a wizard, Luffy. Like, you're sun god, Luffy. Like, come on, man. Just something earlier would have been nice. Appalina Top Hat says, hey, Morj, whatever happened to Morj Unleashed? Morj Unleashed had to be put on pause for basically variety of reasons, but I wonder if like the editors still watch this stream. If Kushin, Rajesh, Karan, if you guys are in the stream, please say hi. But basically just workflow stuff. I would take on my side for sure. Definitely not great on my side. Definitely not great workflow stuff on my side, but then at the same time, for them, just workflow time-wise, I think they were pretty tight with things, and they made great efforts to keep up with it and everything like that. And we did what we could, but at the same time, at the very least for the moment, it has to be on pause, because just people only have so much time in their lives, I suppose, to work on things, and, you know, that's something that takes a while to grow. It's just the way it is. Akash Panda, thanks for the 5. Could Blackbeard and Akainu be twin villains of the same arc like you believe Big Mom and Kaido to be? Could you explain how Akainu can be a challenge after Blackbeard? I think it'd be really, really cool and fitting if they managed to be written in as twin villains, but I just can't help but feel that at this point in the story, the Marines and the world government are separating into their own group, essentially. Or, like, that's becoming its own blob as a villain. And the Blackbeard pirates are becoming their own blob as, like, there's the pirate conflict of getting the rogue poneglyphs and stuff like that, and then there's the broader lore world conflict of freeing the world from the celestial dragons. With Kaido and Big Mom, to me it was different because it felt like their storylines were being built up and built up and built up to intersect, which is, you know, ultimately what happened with the Wano arc. Like, they were even giving the same, like, you start the Versus 4 Emperors saga, and it's like Nekomamushi giving like a big double page spread of like the 2 poneglyphs are held by Kaido and Big Mom, so you need to beat those 2, and then those are the 2 bosses of the rest of this saga. Akainu and Blackbeard, they have been like framed side by side very frequently, both in Marineford, like that. There's a very important page of Marineford that frames them side by side, and then even like chapter 652, like the 2 changes you need to know to start the post time skip. It's Jinbei talking about, hey, this is what happened with Akainu, he became Fleet Admiral, and this is what happened with Blackbeard, he became Yonko, and it seems like it's framing them side by side. But I just don't see storyline-wise how you could take on the Marines and the Blackbeard pirates as villains in the same arc. So I don't know about that. And I don't know how Akainu could be a challenge after Blackbeard personally, unless Akainu unlocks Advanced Conqueror's Haki. If he can do that, which I feel like the other admirals don't have at this point, if Akainu, like Akainu pre-time skip was already a significant challenge for Whitebeard, however you want to interpret that fight, right? Granted, Whitebeard old, etc. But if Whitebeard was young, he's just stronger than everybody except Roger, so it's like that's a wash anyway. But Akainu, big challenge for Whitebeard. Right, if he developed Advanced Conqueror's Haki post time skip, then I could see him being a bigger challenge than Blackbeard, because Advanced Conqueror's Haki is the most important shit, right? Ali H, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 9 months. Yo, Morj, will we get a Wano analysis by the end of One Piece? Yes, yes. Also, manga Morj in the gutter for real, for real. Yeah, man, time is just hard. Let me focus on the Wano video first, and then we can circle back to manga Morj. Anuj Agarwal says, are there exclusive Morjcasts for Pirate King tier? Thank you for asking. Yes, there are, but they only come out once a month. So, like, regular Yonko tier Morjcasts, which come out for Yonko tier members on either Patreon or YouTube, right? They come out every Friday. Those are the weekly Morjcasts. The Pirate King tier, it's an exclusive, longer podcast. So the last one was an hour. If you guys are interested in checking out what happens with Pirate King tier podcast, the last one was an hour long and it covered a lot of subjects. It covered me comparing the big three to each other. It covered me talking about what I felt was going to happen after the raid failed, so I went into a long 20-minute section talking about that. Yeah, it's an hour long podcast that is based on topics that people ask me to talk about, basically, and that comes out once a month. So you can still access the past Pirate King tier podcast. The last one that I did for the previous month was I thought it was really well liked by all of the Pirate King tier people there, because it was the topics that they'd been asking me to talk about. So you guys can check that if you want. So how often do you release? How often are you planning on recording them in the future? I think I just covered that. So Pirate King tier stuff, it's once a month. Yonko tier, it's once every week. Obviously, if you're Pirate King, you get access to all of the weekly stuff as well. It's just you also get the additional once a month thing. Tala, thanks for the 7. Any more LSAT tips? 166 for diagnostic. Reading comp is my worst so far, with logic games being my highest. Oh, I think it's rare that logic games are people's highest. Actually, maybe that's just they were my lowest at first, but then they eventually, it was like a slight misbalance. And then by the end, I was pretty much even across the board for everything. Is 3 months going to be enough study time? Thanks. I mean, I don't know. 166 is a really good score to start with. And I think that, 3 months study time, some people, I never took a class for it. I just had a workbook for it, basically. The workbook was basically it's just practice tests. So it had 10 practice tests. I think it took 7 or 8 before the time of the test. So for me, all it was basically is 3 months enough study time? In my book, from my perspective, yes, because all I did was took a practice test. A day or two later, I'd take another practice test. Day or two later, I'd take another practice test, and then you do that for a little bit, and then in a couple weeks, it's time for the test. That's what I did. But if you want to max out how you could do, you could probably sign up for a course. You could take a class. You could do multiple practice books. So you I did one. You could do 3 or 4. You could fit a lot of time. You could fit a lot in 3 months. So I'd say 3 months is plenty of practice time. It depends how much you want to put into it, As for any more tips, I feel like everyone just takes tests differently, so I don't want to bias you with tips and stuff like that. I feel the tip that I gave of shaving off time, that's kind of to make, to buffer for the actual test or whatever. That's the only one that I'd give for this specific thing. But in terms of actual approach, I feel everybody has different ways of working out logic games and stuff like that. So I would not give out a tip. I would suggest you take a class and see what they tell you there, because anything I say here will probably work for me, but maybe not for you. I'd say for me, for standardized, I've always been very good at standardized tests. I think one of the things that I've found with standardized tests is that I try just not to stress over any sort of individual question. So anything that you're confident about or mostly confident about, you just go with your first guess, and then you can circle back to the ones you're not confident about. But that's 101. I feel like everybody does that anyway, so I feel like that's not much of a tip. Akash Panda, thanks for the 5. So Law is coming to Elbaf, right? Their log post should also point to Elbaf or Egghead. Luffy, Law, Kid back together in Elbaf. Please, God, no. I feel like Kid's still not done in the story, weirdly enough. So I feel like there's still just more stuff. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's more for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, things direct Law to Elbaf, and then Luffy and the company are going to Elbaf, and then in that case, Kid's already at Elbaf, underwater, but, you know, still technically there. I don't know. JWP says, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member. Maybe you can attest to whether or not you enjoyed the last podcast, if you ended up listening to it. I'm gonna be tight if the really strong person is Kizaru. It is Kizaru, because it's like lights coming up. Like, they're talking about Kizaru here. It's gotta be Kizaru. See, if Luffy was referring to Saturn, that would be cool, but it feels like Luffy's just talking about Kizaru. D-Laja Boy, thanks. Is there range on Black Den Mushi? I forgot. If there is range, that would mean Morgan's is close to Egghead. I feel like... I don't know. I don't know if that's ever been established. The range on a Black Den Mushi. I don't know if that's ever been established, so I can't speak, but it would be cool if Morgan's is nearby. Connect Vivi to this situation. Abyssal Leviathan, thanks. Kizaru did say he would 1v2 Kaido and Big Mom. JK lol. Yeah. Watch Kizaru be just... Kaido and Big Mom weren't even top 10. You know, Kizaru and, like, all the other admirals were stronger. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, I feel like at this point, most of us would assume that Kizaru is not as strong as Akainu or Aokiji, right? Like, Akainu and Aokiji, they're established to be essentially equal. And it seems like Akainu and Aokiji are probably a little bit held in higher regard as admirals than Kizaru, but probably very, very close, right? At the very least, I think most would agree that Kizaru is not stronger than Akainu and Aokiji, right? So with that in mind, we just saw, like, Aokiji against, like, old Garp. You know, I just can't imagine Kizaru being stronger than Kaido or Big Mom at this point. You know, I feel like he'd give them a good fight, but just, he's not going to be stronger than them. I just don't think. Aespa comeback, thanks for the 5. Luffy knows what Kizaru did to his crew last time, including nearly killing Zoro, and he's concerned / serious for his crew, not character breaking at all. Dude, come on, but that's like saying, like... That's like saying a pacifista nearly fucked up his crew last time, so he should be scared every time he sees a pacifista. Or like Sentomaru fucked up his crew last... Like, once you're significantly stronger than these other characters, like, you would no longer worry about them. Once you're stronger than these... Like, Luffy's not on the rooftop against Kaido and Big Mom, like, oh no, what's gonna happen to Zoro? Like, poor Zoro sitting right here. Like, what's Kaido gonna do to him? Like Luffy's not sitting there with, like, Zoro, like, Jinbei and Sanji, like, shitting his pants because Green Bull showed up. The whole point is, like, once Luffy is strong enough, once he's stronger than these characters, he would be confident that he's able to protect his crew against them. It just doesn't make any sense that, like, just because a character did something bad to his crew at one point, then Luffy's just gonna be scared of them forever, no matter how strong Luffy gets, because that defeats the entire point of Luffy training and becoming stronger. And we've already seen that that's not the case, because Luffy's not scared for his crew every time a pacifista shows up. Luffy's not scared for his crew when Sentomaru shows up, you know? Luffy's not scared for his crew, like, when Lucci shows up, even though Lucci fucked up his crew and, like, stole Robin and stuff. This is just, that's growth. You're getting stronger, right? Why, if Luffy is stronger than Kizaru, and Luffy's no longer scared of characters like Kaido, like Big Mom, like admirals like Green Bull, like Fujitora, Luffy's no longer scared of these guys, why would he randomly be scared that Kizaru is here? It's just, it feels very, very, very forced. Onojagro says, headcanon, Luffy is scared because he's with his crew. He's seen up front how Kizaru can speed blitz his friends, PTSD, he can keep Kaido in front. That's just headcanon though, man. Like, Kaido, what's the first thing that Kaido did? Kaido speed blitzed Luffy. That's the first thing Kaido did to him. Like, you're saying that it's because of how fast, like, Luffy specifically, like, okay, Kizaru is so fast, that's why I'm so scared. Luffy's saying, he's not even clear that it's Kizaru. He's just saying someone really strong just showed up. He's not even like Light Guy or something like that showed up. It doesn't even seem like Luffy's aware of who showed up. He's just, like, sensing someone strong, doesn't even know it's Kizaru, and is freaking out. For the record, I didn't think that was such a big deal when I read the chapter, but now I feel like people are talking about it a lot, which is like, now I'm having to address it a lot and think about it a lot. I'm like, this does seem stupid more and more that I think about this. So I'm going to try and ignore this topic. Candy is good. Gaming Chan something. I think the face is fine. Oh, god damn it. Whitebeard had it with Odin and Shanks with Kid. Not to mention... But Shanks had it with Kid when Kid was attacking his subordinates. It wasn't because Shanks was scared of Kid. Not to mention we saw their faces after Green Bull was dealt with. Yeah, but come on, man. When we saw that Green Bull panel, we weren't just like, oh, Luffy must have been shitting his pants before this, but now he's fine because like they all seemed very relaxed. It didn't seem like they were just shitting their pants a second ago. Whitebeard and Odin is the closest that I would agree to this, but Whitebeard was also like, all I can say is there are panels of people being like a little worried that a strong opponent shows up. I think Oda went really overboard with the panel that he chose here because this seems like some of the most genuine, terrified, horrified fear that Luffy has ever displayed in the entire series. You know what I mean? Like, this just feels wildly out of character for Luffy in general. Like, if he was in front of Kaido, this would seem out of character. If he was in front of, he could have been dropped into Sabo's position in front of Imu and all those guys and it would have seemed out of character. And he's doing it for Kizaru, which is a character that seems like should be clearly not an issue to Luffy when he's like squatted up with his entire crew and his strongest fighters like Zoro and Sanji and stuff like that at this point. You know? Because we've seen Luffy in so many similar situations against stronger characters or like worse odds and he's just never reacted like this. It's the extreme. I'm not saying like characters can't be like somewhat worried when they come up against another strong character even if you are stronger than that opponent. It's more just like I think the panel itself is just like so overboard exaggerated for what it is. That's pretty much it. J Full, thanks for the 10. Sorry, Morj and Chad, for getting off topic. No worries, I hate this topic. But all the fuck I do is work, so I haven't been able to catch a stream. I'm sorry about that, man. Like, I know some people have situations where right now you're just, like, time-wise, work sucks up so much of people's time these days. In the current era that we live in. I haven't been able to catch a stream in a while, but have you gotten to resume your restart Kingdom again? No, I haven't been able to try Kingdom again. You know, wait, let me ask you guys something. Have you guys ever heard of a series called Kubera, The Last God? Because, that god recommended to me recently, and I actually started reading a few chapters of it. It's a totally, like, it's not a manga, it's a webtoon. And I didn't feel like I liked the start, but now I've gotten, like, 10 chapters into it, and I kind of see where it's going. Like, supposedly I've heard it gets really good, but it starts a little rough. Has anyone heard of that? Skizmo says Luffy got PTSD. No, I don't. The PTSD comments make no sense because Luffy doesn't react like this to Sentomaru or Kuma or pacifistas. So the PTSD shit doesn't make any sense. If it's PTSD and has nothing to do with strength, then Luffy would just react like that to everybody from the Sabaody situation. But if he doesn't, then there's no reason he would just randomly react to Kizaru in that way. I'm a pirate. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 4 months. Do you think One Piece's third act will be as good or better than the pre-time skip? Also, have a great week. One Piece is a 2-act story. It has a prologue, which is chapter 0 to 100, and then first act, which is Grand Line to... opening of Grand Line all the way to Marine Ford, and then this is the second act, which is New World, like entering the New World all the way to finding the One Piece. So it's not really a 3-act, like it's a 2-act story basically. Flame, thanks for the. Could this act, the second act as a whole, be better than pre-time skip? It depends how the final saga is. If I'm saying like pre-time skip versus post-time skip at this point, my personal preference is pre-time skip. But I'm sure people have arguments for post-time skip. But the way it rounds things out, I don't know. I think, for me, it will depend a lot on the emotional highs that the final saga can hit. Because in terms of hype, final saga is going to hit higher hype points, most likely, than pre-time skip. And probably in terms of fights as well. For me, ultimately, I'm going to value, like, if it can do that and also hit the emotional storytelling beats of pre-time skip, then for me, I would probably put it higher, personally, than post-time skip. Flame says, to be honest, Morj, Luffy doesn't look scared to me. He just looks surprised / caught off guard. Let me look at the panel again. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating it. Let me look at the panel again. Because to me, this is just like the shading, everything. Let me see. Let me see. Maybe I'm over exaggerating. I hate that this has just become the topic of conversation because, like, I, I didn't think it was a big deal when I first read it, but then people kept bringing it up, and now I've had to keep talking about it, and I'm like, yeah, maybe it was, like, the more I think about it, the more I feel like it was out of character. But it's also probably just to, hype up the next chapter. Dude, no, come on. I've never, like, okay, we've probably seen this Luffy expression before. We definitely have. It's just so rare. When was the last time we saw Luffy like this? This is insane. You know? Like, even just, like, I don't care, like, no matter how it's PTSD. No, that doesn't make sense, because Luffy has never shown PTSD from anybody else from the Sabaody incident. It's like, oh, his crew is there. So what? Luffy's more confident when his crew's there. He was confident when he had Green Bull and everything. It's like, oh, well, the weaker members of his crew are there. Okay, Big Mom showed up and was about to attack Luffy and her, and, like, his entire squad at, in Onigashima. If you guys remember that section of the story, Luffy and the Straw Hats basically facing off against Big Mom. Luffy didn't give a shit. He wasn't worried that Big Mom's gonna just, like, kill off his crewmates. He barely gave a fuck about Big Mom. To me, there's no way you can spin this that, like, makes Luffy's expression here make sense as anything other than, like, okay, we gotta hype the next chapter. JWP says podcast was fire. Also, love the first time I read it. It says I read podcast was fine. I was like, oh man, you didn't have to comment just to say the podcast was fine. That wasn't the type of promotion I was hoping for. You said podcast. JWP says podcast was fire. Thank you very much. Also love current One Piece. I agree. I literally can't guess the next chapter. Even on Egghead would be cool if we don't just get the typical 1v1s. I think it's cool that, like, Kizaru's making his move first, because I like that the entire crew is there, because we've been speculating who gets to fight Kizaru. It would be cool if we got to see, like, Luffy take a crack at him, Zoro take a crack at him, Sanji take a crack at him, or, like, all of them have, like, little moments or something like that. If it's Saturn Luffy's reacting to, that'd be awesome. Drip Jumbe 69 says he's strong except at Morj. I do think Kizaru is strong. I definitely agree Kizaru is strong. I'm just saying, do you guys think he's stronger than Kaido? Because I don't think he's stronger than Kaido. That's all I'm saying. Like, if Luffy's laughing off Kaido and Big Mom to their face, doesn't matter the context, his whole crew can be around, it could just be him and Zoro, it could just be him and Kaido by themselves. We've seen every context at this point. Luffy doesn't really react like that, you know? So I'm just like, why is he like this? Other than to hype up the next chapter, which basically at the end of the day, that's what it is, you know? Maybe Luffy saw a future sight vision, like Shanks did. That'd be cool. But Luffy doesn't always have future sight on. GDN, thanks for the 5. If not the Admirals, who else can show Logia Awakening? I hope it's Kizaru this arc, man, because it's just like Vegapunk teased it this arc. Like, he talked about Logia Awakenings being special. We didn't end up getting to see it with Aokiji versus Garp, so let's hope it's Kizaru. Blackbeard is the only other top tier with Logia, and his fruit functions differently. That's true, because it's just like Blackbeard's Logia, it doesn't even do the one thing. You guys remember? This is so crazy. For the longest time in One Piece, just the idea of Logia fruits was the most broken thing, because it was like, you can't... You guys remember how much of a big deal it just seemed for so long that there's certain characters in the series that are literally, very, very literally untouchable, right? You can't do anything to them. We all kind of figured that there must be some way, because it was like, well, then how's Mihawk so... Like, how is Mihawk able to fight, like, guys like that and stuff like that, you know? But for, like, a good 500 chapters of the story, we didn't know how. It was kind of just like the idea of being a Logia was so badass in One Piece. It was just like, yeah, there's characters that can't be hit. And then Blackbeard's Logia, we all understood it was strong, but it didn't do the one thing that made Logias the most broke, which was avoid being hit. So it always felt a little different in my mind. I was like, yeah, Blackbeard's obviously strong. This is pre-time skip, okay? Blackbeard's really strong. He's got the darkness fruit, maybe the strongest fruit, but at the same time, he's not broken like the other Logia, because, you know, they can hit him and stuff. D La Joy Boy, thank you for the 20, man. We know the Straw Hats' plans never play out correctly. That's not true. That's not true. We we went through a whole giant arc to test that theory, and turns out sometimes everything goes basically perfectly. So Morgan's coming to Egghead could help the Straw Hats get away to Elbaf when their initial plan fails. I doubt the initial plan fails at this point, man. I believe Vegapunk will deliberately destroy Egghead to keep everything out of world government hands. Jokes aside, I could see this stuff happening. I like the idea of the destruction of Egghead by the not Egghead, but like at least Punk Records by the end of it, just because it feels like an important thing to happen. So Morgan's helping out would be cool. Flame, thanks for the 5. No, covered this. Covered this. Keenan, thanks for the 10. I don't think Luffy looks scared here. Come on, man. How is this not scared? I don't even know. If someone asked, I can't draw well, but if someone asked me to draw a scared expression of a terrified person, it would look something similar to this. If I had artistic skills. Or if someone had, like, gave me like a lineup of images and were like, which one looks like a scared person, a terrified person, I'd probably be like, this guy. This dude looks like he actually just shit his pants. Keenan says, I don't think Luffy looks scared here. I think he's just shocked that someone who can actually fight him is coming. He knew Kaido and Big Mom were in Onigashima, but here Kizaru's just pulling up fast. Okay, I could see that. I could see that argument, that it's a surprise, that Luffy's not prepared for that. I could see that argument. You know, at the end of the day, I think it's just not worth getting deep into because, like, it's a single one-off panel that I doubt Oda put that much thought into. So even if it seems, like, surprising here, it's kind of just like... You know what it is also? It's just, like, in One Piece, characters get hyped so much, but we also ultimately get to see very little of characters actually fighting. You know? Like, top-tier characters actually fighting. So everything gets scrutinized quite a bit, right? Like, we haven't seen Luffy actually fight an admiral. So every little detail, you know, people joke about sweat scaling. Like, oh, Blackbeard was sweating against the Seraphim. What does that mean? Or like he had this expression against Law and stuff. What does that mean? It's because we don't have a tremendous amount of data of, like, how do a lot of these higher level characters stack against each other. So you got to really, like, you know, when we get something, like, this is Luffy's first time, like, actually about to fight an admiral straight up, not in a pre-time skip way, but like actually in a capable way, right? Not counting Fujitora, not a real fight, but like a real fight against an admiral, right? It's about to come. So can't help but like really look like we've got 2 weeks of waiting at this point. More than 2 weeks because the fucking OP scan's dropping it so fucking early for no reason. But because of that, like, we got the panel we got, so it's like gotta read into that. By next chapter, maybe, like, this panel's totally forgotten, you know? Umair Ula, thanks for the 5. People were calling Kizaru fraud. Who was calling Kizaru fraud? Who called Kizaru fraud? I don't think he's as strong as Kaido. That's all I've ever said. But, like, I don't think he's... I think he would lose to Kaido. I think he would lose to Shanks. I don't think he would beat Big Mom, right? But I think he would be a solid fight for anybody in the story. But it looks like Luffy is the real fraud here. See, this is what I'm talking... Like, some people are saying Luffy doesn't look scared. Other people are saying Luffy looks like a real fraud here. Also, can you rank Jojo parts in order by how much you like them? Love you. Okay, thank you. I will rank them real quick because I've actually thought a little bit about this and my opinion has gone back and it's shifted around. Can't rank part 9 because it's not out yet, right? My favorites are 7, then 4, then 8, then 3, then 6, then 5, and then 2, and then 1. But that's not a knock on any of the ones I rank low. It's purely personal preference. Like, I think 5 is a better story with more interesting ideas and stuff than part 3. I just rank part 3 higher because I happen to like that cast of kids. I found the Stardust Crusaders more, entertaining and fun for me to follow. That's pretty much it. So it's not a ranking of like what I think are the best JoJo's parts. If I'm being like perfectly honest, I think only part 7 is like a like what I consider to be like a pretty great story for the most part. Other JoJo's parts are like all over the place for the most part. Haha. But you know, they've all got that unique JoJo's style and fights and like they've got the unique JoJo qualities that make them very, very enjoyable, right? So that's just how I rank it by enjoyability. But if you ask me again, like 5 months down the road, I might just change the order again, because I think my ranking was different like probably a year ago. I don't know. I think I just know I like 7, 4, and 8. They're my favorites, and then like 3, 6, and 5 can kind of be shuffled in order, and then 2 and 1 I think are just clearly not as good as the others personally, or not as enjoyable to me as. I think 1 is just, it's never gonna crack anywhere lower than the bottom. GDN says Kizaru's light up is making Luffy look scared. That's all I'm saying. Like, people are, there's so many like polarizing opinions on that panel here. Bassam El Madawi, thanks for the 10. I feel like as Oda is building up a schism, this is one of those words that I never actually say out loud in real life. You know what I mean? So I don't know how it's pronounced. You see it a million times in writing, but how do you pronounce schism? Is it schism? Let's see. Schism pronunciation. Yeah, schism. Seems correct. Alright, so Oda's building up a schism in the Marines. I agree. Like, that's a video topic honestly I've been wanting to make for a little bit, which is just the upcoming, especially with the recent stuff we've got with Garp, Aokiji, and Kobe, right? It seems like everything is heading towards a breaking point. There's a reason Oda set up Sword and all of that into the story. I think everything's heading towards a breaking point where there's going to be 2 major factions were split off amongst the Marines. It's very possible that Akainu is not ultimately, like, we could end up in a scenario where, I don't want to get too much into what I want to talk about in the video, but we could end up in a scenario, maybe I even drop this video next week. We could end up in a scenario where the Marines aren't villains that we need to defeat at all, if that makes sense. Like, there's certain Marines that seem like they have to be defeated, like Green Bull. Akainu seems like he has to be defeated, but I could even see, like, there's so much that Oda could do there. It could be like, there's a good guy side of the Marines, bad guy side of the Marines, they gotta fight, like, or we have to beat the bad guy side of the Marines, or it could be like, there's a total Marine upheaval period and everyone turns against the world government. There's different things that could happen. Sabo and Kobe versus Akainu would be a cool fight. I'm always biased towards the idea of Akainu fighting Luffy, so I'm never super on board with that, but, you know, I could see stuff like that. Like, Kobe and Akainu, that just seems like some sort of, at least, like, maybe if not a fist-to-fist conflict, but, like, it feels like that's a conflict that's going to pop up again, similar to Marineford. And I could always see Sabo fighting Akainu. That's always a possibility. Sabby and Rob, thanks for the 5. Morj, thoughts on Katarina impersonating Bonnie? Love the content, brother. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And with Katarina and Bonnie, I talked about this earlier in the stream, but I think there's a solid chance. It just felt like something was being pointed out with that little Luffy panel about, like, you know, something seems off with you. We also are missing that crucial information about what did Bonnie actually see in the Kuma flashback, right? Like, we skipped over so much that seemed really, really important. If Katarina Devon has taken over anyone, you know, the more we think about it, right? If Katarina Devon has taken over anyone on that squad, Bonnie would make the most sense, simply because... No, it could be CP0. It could be a CP... Okay. Outside of CP0, it would have to be Bonnie. Because amongst the Straw Hat crew, they would probably be able to discern who an imposter is fairly quickly, right? The Straw Hats should know each other so well. On the other hand, Chopper was fooled by literally the fake Straw Hat pirates in the Return to Subodhi arc. But they're not all as dumb as Chopper, right? So if Katarina Devon swaps for one of the Straw Hats, right? If Katarina Devon swaps for one of the Straw Hats, then pretty soon there should be something that lets off some sort of a clue to the other Straw Hats that something is off about this person, right? Like, could be something as simple as, like, Zoro knowing the correct way back to the ship. People would pause and be like, shouldn't you be lost, right? And like, this is not the Zoro that we know. Something's wrong here, right? The Straw Hats have so many peculiarities that they each know so much about that I feel like Bonnie wouldn't be able to infiltrate them easily, right? Sorry, Katarina. Sorry if I've been mixing up the words wrong. Katarina would not be able to infiltrate them easily, right? Then with the Vegapunks, I think the same logic should apply, where the Vegapunks should know each other well enough that it's going to be hard for one of them to fool each other into thinking that, like, you would probably be able to pick up, like, you're a real Vegapunk, you're not, or something, right? CP0, if one of them's Devon, it would have to be Kaku or Stussy because Lucci's been giving information. Maybe this is the topic for next stream, figuring out who the fuck Katarina Devon is impersonating, if anyone. Like, Bonnie is the only one that's a new person that CP0 doesn't know well, the Vegapunks don't know well, the Straw Hats don't know well. She's the easiest person to impersonate. And Bonnie was off by her lonesome during the entire, like, closing parts of the Egghead Island storylines that we saw before we cut away to the outside world. So Bonnie was off by herself. She was experiencing Kuma's memories. She would have been vulnerable to being taken over, right? Or like being knocked out and being replaced or something like that, right? Umair Ula, thanks for the 5. Do you think Yonko and Warlord system dissolves after Luffy becomes Pirate King and a new government is in place? Also, who wins, Zoro or Odin? Watch tomorrow's video. Tomorrow's video gives a very, very interesting idea. It covers a lot of stuff that could potentially happen end of the story. As for Zoro versus Odin, sorry that's a bad answer, but like I think tomorrow's video you'll enjoy if you have that on your mind because it does cover that towards the end of that video that's discussed. Zoro versus Odin, let me pull up one thing real quick. Let me just make sure I'm remembering a certain panel correctly. I got the sense that Odin was still stronger than Zoro by the end of Wano, personally. Actually, definitely got the sense. However, Zoro's a tricky character because he still has Ashura. And Ashura is just a hard thing to... Because Ashura is, so it's Conqueror's Haki. Now that Zoro's mastered Conqueror, like, he can use it more at will. You would think that now he could use Ashura on command, whereas before it seemed like something he could only pull out once in a blue moon in specific circumstances, right? So it's kind of like, if the next time we see Zoro fighting, he's showing that he can, like, ever since Wano, he can use Ashura pretty much on a whim, then, like, freely. That's just an ability that he has on hand anytime he needs it now, and he can just fight at, in that mode for however long. Then I think it's a toss-up. Then I think it's a case where we don't know enough information about Odin to really make a call, right? And it'll depend on who Zoro's next opponent is, stuff like that. However, based on the feats that we actually saw, like, if we just basing what we saw of Zoro to close out the King fight, no, Odin would be stronger. The chapter I'm going back to is chapter, what is it, 1034? What's the chapter where Zoro masters it? 1033? In 1033, yeah, Zoro's learning about... Yeah, even as Zoro's unlocking his final power-up of Advanced Conqueror's Haki and everything like that, he's just in awe of how, like, this was never an issue for Odin. Like, Odin always basically had the natural Haki mastery, I suppose, to be able to wield Enma the way that it took Zoro some time to be able to. So the sense I get is that Zoro right here in the scene is kind of catching up to what Odin was. I'm sure soon Zoro will be definitively stronger than Odin, but I didn't get that sense by the end of Wano, personally. Basim El Matawi says, missed a bit of my chat. Oh, I'm sorry. Fuck. Sorry you had to send again. That's my bad. Also, let me take a look. I wouldn't be surprised if the future Marines consisted of sword, members, and revolutionaries. Oh, the middle part. Definitely sword, I feel, is like the future of the Marines. But revolutionaries? That's kind of crazy. Imagine revolutionaries as the Marines. But that would be cool, and I wouldn't be surprised if Oda writes it like that in the future. Like, I mean, he kind of likes doing that when he merges former enemy groups with each other. You know, like the Shandians that were once fighting all of the Skypians and stuff. Like at the end of the story, the Shandians are actually part of Gonfal's army and they're protecting him and stuff like that. Like they join the system. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's a possibility. Also, wouldn't they try killing Robin since they have Pudding? Pudding still needs to, her eye still needs to open, so they're kind of banking on something to happen. So killing Robin, I feel like capturing Robin would be a better gamble, right? CK, thanks for the 5. Oda messed up saying if 2 Yonko joined forces, they could destroy the world government Marines. He messed up the power scaling of admirals ever since. No, because I feel like that feels accurate to me. Because it's like, I feel like you can't count the world government. I feel like it's its own entity, right? So it's more so because it's not like when you're lining up for war against the pirates, right? Against the Yonko crew. It's not like it's not like Saturn or like Jupiter are going to be showing up at the front lines. Like we saw what they pull out, right? They pull out their entire Marine forces at Marineford, and they pull out the Shichibukai. If they did it again, then this time it would be the Marine forces and the Seraphim, right? The replacement for the Shichibukai. So that's basically what you have to fight a Yonko crew, right? I personally think that it's fairly clear that like Kaido, Shanks, Whitebeard, Big Mom, like I think that at this point we can say like Aokiji is not equal to those guys. Like Fujitora, Green Bull, they're not equal to Kizaru, not equal, right? I mean, we just had a full extended fight scene where like Aokiji couldn't even beat old ass Garp while Garp was being ambushed. Like he did eventually do it, but it didn't seem like Aokiji was stronger than old Garp. At best, you could say maybe they were about even, right? So comparing to like Prime Kaido, Prime Shanks, and stuff like that, I think the Admirals are exactly where you need them to make that statement seem correct, which is like, yeah, one Yonko crew, between the Admirals and all like Fleet Admirals, plus Shichibukai's overkill and stuff, like we got it, right? The Marines have got it. We can take a Yonko crew. That's why we're the Marines. That's why we're in charge. 2 is where it starts getting tricky, because then it's like I feel like it feels right? Because it's like you've got 2 characters, like 2 Yonkos that are, you know, they've got this stuff that the Marines don't seem to have, advanced conquerors hockey and stuff like that. They just seem a bit stronger than the Admirals, right? But then, you know, there's more Admirals than these guys. But then there's also the Yonko top commanders like Marco and, you know, Jozu, Vista and stuff like that. So, like, I feel like that becomes more of a dicey conflict for the Marines. The Shichibukai should put them over the top, but the Shichibukai are unreliable. The Seraphim are the replacements, but the Seraphim, you know, they're still growing and stuff like that. So, overall, I think that Oda set up the world fairly well, which is just like, to me, it seems like, again, however big you think the gaps are, if you want to argue that, like, hey, I think Akainu could beat Big Mom or something, cool. But ultimately, I think that it's meant to feel like, yeah, the Marines, they can beat a single Yonko crew pretty clearly. If you start stacking Yonko crews with, like, some of the strongest, like, these are the elite of the elite in the world, the Yonko are some of the, you know, the Yonko are basically just, like, hockey monsters with, like, you know, crazy abilities and stuff like that, right? Then it just starts getting very dicey for the Marines. If you still think the Marines win, cool, but it's just like a much closer conflict than we had in Marineford. Yeah, but Garp's like a million years old. You know, like, Aokiji, now we got the Aokiji was holding back, Aokiji wasn't trying. It's just like, what do you even say to stuff like that, you know? Like, okay, even if he wasn't trying, Garp was still fighting him at the same time as an entire Yonko crew. At the very least, you got to say that it's like they seem to be portrayed about even. You know what I mean? I don't care who's stronger. Aaron Willis says mans can interpret themes but not scaling. No, it's because people are too biased with scaling. Like, when Oda writes in the idea that, yeah, like, 2 Yonko crews would be a problem for the world government, or, like, would be a problem for the Marines and stuff like that, people choose to, like, ignore that stuff because they're like, no, it just doesn't make sense to me because I think, you know what, I think Aokiji is stronger than Kaido. I think Kizaru is stronger than Big Mom just because. It's like, no, I feel like if you read the story and take things like as Oda's presenting them to you, then scaling is pretty much fucking clear. But because people have like when it comes to scaling, people have so much bias for their own characters that they like that they throw a lot of the shit Oda's presenting out the window. Like, it is insane to me that at this point, after we got that entire Garp Aokiji fight, people are just like, yeah, Aokiji's probably, he could beat a Yonko. It's like, no, come on. I mean, he could maybe beat like Buggy or Blackbeard or something like that, but talking about the OG Yonko, like, come on. Demion writes, is Kuzan low diff the same crew Garp couldn't? Yeah, because Garp had to fight them plus Kuzan. And Kuzan was also fighting, like, Garp was also fighting Shiryu, which is a big difference. Titanium Dragon, thanks for the 5. I really hate the power scaling discussion. No writer's ever going to write 2 top tiers fighting where one shots the other. Only for top tiers versus not top tiers. Well, I think Oda's not going to do that, yeah. Nerve AMV Maker, thanks for the 5. Thoughts on Boa possibly joining Cross Guild? She did say she had to leave Amazon Lily. Thoughts on Boa possibly joining Cross Guild? That would be cool. That would be cool, but it's just that she hates men in general so much that I have a hard time thinking like she would just join up with Cross Guild just because they're Shichibukai. You know? Like, we gotta remember, her allying with Luffy is a big exception. Her being okay with Rayleigh and stuff, that's because of, you know, past bonds. Aaron Will says, Morj, people have bias, then shows his bias. What was my bias? Like, that's my question. Because the initial comment that sparked this was like, somebody said, when Oda said that 2 Yonko crews could be a threat to the entire Marine Force, he ruined the entire power scaling. It's like, I'm saying that can't ruin the power scaling because that is the power scaling. That's the power scaling right there. That's Oda giving us the power scaling. So that's not really bias. That's just taking the story as it is, what the author's telling us. He can't ruin the power. Like, if Oda comes in and says like, Shanks, like, you know, Kizaru can't beat Shanks. Let's say Oda comes in and says Kizaru can't beat Shanks. That's not Oda ruining the power scaling. That's him telling us what the power scaling is. When Oda tells us, like, hey, the admirals would be able to beat these revolutionary commanders if they weren't having to hold back, as was written into the Reverie arc, that's Oda explaining the power scaling to us. I feel like people tend to ignore that. You see that with characters like Sabo or Law, and tremendous amounts of bias towards these characters that don't deserve it, because people just tend to like these characters. Manifest Joe, thanks for the 5. Agree, also the Marines are just the public face of the world government. HK Holy Knights serve Celestial Dragons and are unreliable military force, so Marines resorted to warlord system. Yeah, the Holy Knight, like the entire world government stuff, you kind of got to take out of the world powers equation because the further we go in the story, the more apparent it becomes that like they're their own thing, right? Shit, I didn't realize now we're deep into a power scaling discussion. I'm trying to find a comment that isn't that so I can switch the subject, but now I've gone too deep. Now we're talking about it. Humility above pride, thanks for the 5. Kaku was chasing Zoro and S-Hawk. All the Seraphim were busy. How did Kaku... Kaku was chasing Zoro and S-Hawk. All the Seraphim were busy. Okay, we're solving a mystery here. How did Kaku fight 2 Seraphim? Katarina might have bodied Kaku and is posing as him right now. Why with all the injuries then? Keep in mind that Laffy's here too. It's Laffy and Katarina because Laffy's the other missing Blackbeard pirate. Katarina might have bodied Kaku and is posing as him right now. How did Kaku fight 2 Seraphim? Katarina might have bodied Kaku and is posing as him right now. But I don't think it's implied that Kaku fought 2 Seraphim. I do think it's definitely possible that Kaku... Like, at this point, I don't think a Straw Hat... I feel like a Straw Hat isn't Katarina, right? Maybe. It's hard. It's hard. Maybe that'll be next stream. We'll try and solve the mystery. I like that this arc has 2 mysteries, right? So first we had the... We're doing a whodunit twice, basically. Not quite a whodunit this time around, but we're trying to find the criminal twice, right? Because first time, it was who's the traitor, right? This time, it's who's the imposter. So I like that both halves of the arc have a little bit of that. It's kind of cool. Isis1155, thanks for the 10. Hey Morj, my assumption was always that age drops you about 1 level. Garp goes from Pirate King to Yonko level. Prime Whitebeard was Pirate King, goes to low Yonko from illness. And Prime Rayleigh goes from Yonko to Admiral. Makes sense he handled that crew without Blackbeard there. I kind of tend to... I just don't think of it, I suppose, as quite as cut and dry. Like, you know, like, I don't know exactly how Whitebeard stacks against the other Yonko in his age. I just assume that in his prime he was higher. But at the same time, with Garp, it's like, okay, Garp was Pirate King level, you're saying now he's Yonko level. My thing is kind of like, 1, do we know for certain at the... Like, I think the last thing that kind of has to be figured out is the... This is the tricky thing with levels. Is the gap between where Roger and Prime Whitebeard and Prime Garp were at, is the gap between them and, say, like, Prime Kaido, Prime Shanks, is that a whole ass tier? You get what I'm saying? My thought is that basically it's possible that once you hit sky splitting level, I suppose, and up, that's essentially, from there on, you're essentially in the top tier. And it's just like, you know, Luffy's probably towards the very bottom of that tier and Roger's at the top or something. Or maybe, like, it's a whole different tier. I don't know. But you get what I'm saying? It's like, you know, was Prime Whitebeard just in a whole different level than the other Yonko? And then getting old and stuff dropped him, like below the others? Or, like, was Prime Whitebeard a bit stronger than the other Yonko and then getting old maybe dropped him to, like, I don't know, like, 3rd or 4th place or something? I don't know. Like, we don't have the details yet to really say. I think the biggest thing that we saw with the Aokiji fight is the lack of Advanced Conquerors Haki, which at the end of the day seems to be the separator between the tippy-top characters versus what we would call, I suppose, Admiral level. For me personally, I feel like Akainu getting Advanced Conquerors Haki would be very fitting for him and his position. Sengoku also had Sengoku was also a Conquerors Haki user and stuff like that. I think Akainu developing that would be great. But I don't expect, like, Fujitora, Green Bull, Kizaru. If Kizaru has Advanced Conquerors Haki, that'd be wild. But it doesn't seem like it fits with some of the things he's been saying so far in terms of just being like, yeah, I'm just a, like, a corporate worker and stuff like that. Like, I just check in, clock out. But at the same time, Kizaru might not be letting on as much about his true self as we've seen. So I think this next bit with Kizaru will tell us a lot, you know? Applina Top Hat, thanks for the 2. Most importantly is Karu with Vivian Morgan. More importantly is Karu with Vivian Morgan. I don't think so. Did we see? Maybe. I don't think so. Summoner Stan, welcome to the Yonko. you now have access to the weekly Morjcast that will come out this Friday with all my most, I suppose, uh, all the opinions that you won't see here in chapter reviews or in videos, the juicy stuff, basically. So wait for that on this Friday. Shit, now we're really deep power scaling. Now we're talking about Rayleigh. Why are we talking about Rayleigh at this point? Why are we talking about Rayleigh? Now why are we talking about Mihawk? Why are we talking about Mihawk? Okay, Mango the God says, earlier you talked about Kubera. It's amazing. Yeah, I didn't follow up about that. One sec. Initially slow read with matte art. Yeah, that's how I'm feeling right now. It feels a bit slow. No, actually it's not slow. It's been moving pretty quick. I just don't, I think like, it's felt crude. The writing has felt crude so far, but as I understand it gets better. The art is a real, I don't like the art personally, but I've also heard that gets better. But later the characters become so relatable that it feels like story with many MCs with no good or evil, plus great world building. Yeah, so those are the strong points I've heard about it. So I'm probably going to read that for a little bit, and I'll check back in with you guys, give an update at some point. Marocat says, Kubera the Last God is really oh so good. Okay, I'm only seeing good things about this. I feel like it's one of those series that probably suffers from having a weak start, because if I was not getting like a personal recommendation for that series, I would have dropped it chapter 1. It just doesn't seem good. But I read 10 chapters and I'm like, okay, this is interesting and I can see the appeal. But I'm still waiting for a lot of the writing and the art to get better. Cigar Ferk, thanks for the 10. Bonnie is suddenly happy. Y'all suspecting Devon, but she saw someone in Kuma's past he met in East Blue with Revos. He said he will bring revelation. He will come out at a certain time. I was wondering where you're going with this. His name is Pinzoro. I think Cigar Ferk solved it. Bonnie saw Pinzoro in the Kuma flashback, and that's put such a smile on her face that she's forgotten all about how she was feeling earlier, you know? Ram, thanks for the, I don't know what currency this is, but thank you very much. Morj, off topic, but do you follow Jujutsu Kaisen? Your theories would be really interesting in that franchise as well, especially with current events. Thanks for the content. Greetings from Argentina. So, Jujutsu Kaisen, okay, so I stopped reading at the Shibuya incident arc. I've watched the episodes of season 2, which were really good, in my opinion. I stopped reading at the end of Shibuya incident. I feel like I'm gonna let the series play out sometime longer and then catch up. But I did start reading the current fight just because it's the fight that has been hyped for so long. So it's weird. There's a huge chunk of the story I'm missing between Shibuya incident and the current fight, but I'm reading the current fight week to week. And initially it's weird. Like I really like aspects of the current fight, and I really dislike aspects of it's cool. It's cool. No matter what I can say, it's definitely throughout manga, I think one of the most hyped up like heavyweight title fights that we've ever had. So it's just cool to read week to week. So I'm happy it's happening. But yeah, I don't think I'm into the series enough that I would ever feel like making theories and things like that personally, or like expanding into content for that. Dimion Wright, thanks for the 10. Akainu and Aokiji fought whole Yonko crews by themselves. Aokiji, the crew he was fighting was missing some players. But, like, it doesn't really matter because, like, Aokiji and Akainu are established to be equals. Even if you throw in their captains, Garp, Sengoku, Kizaru, Fujitora, and Green Bull, pack them up pretty easily. Even if you throw in their captains... What? Are you saying... Who are you saying they pack up? You're saying Garp, you're saying Fujitora, Green Bull, Sengoku, Kizaru pack up like Yonko crews by themselves? Even if you throw in their captains, Garp, Sengoku, Kizaru, Fujitora, and Green Bull pack. I don't understand the statement. Akainu and Aokiji fought whole Yonko crews by themselves. Even if you throw in their captains, Garp, Sengoku, Kizaru, Fujitora, and Green Bull pack them up pretty easily. I just don't understand who's who's who in this situation? Like, who you saying gets packed up? I don't think I fully understand that. I would agree that I don't fully understand. I don't understand this full situation. Yeah, I think I don't full. I just don't get what the full comment is there personally. Does somebody else understand? JWP, thanks for the 2. Would be hilarious if Mihawk ends up Admiral level. Less than Admiral level? Holy shit. You guys don't understand. I've explained this once on stream before. But long-time, like, One Piece community... people have been long-time fans of the One Piece community. You really, really don't understand what a, like, Twilight world I feel like I live in right now. Where Mihawk stocks are so absurdly high. Okay, because... Let me tell you this. After Marineford, a lot of people say, like, Mihawk, okay, I think most people except Mihawk is probably being, like, Yonko level at this point, and a lot of people are like, he's stronger than Shanks. A good number of people, right? I'm not going to say the majority, but a good number, like, it's a sizable faction. And not just that, I think a lot of people have Mihawk, like, if you ignore Emu, like, top 2 or 3 in the story at this point. Like, Mihawk stocks are insanely high. If you look at a lot of people's, like, top 30 lists, like, Mihawk's gonna rank crazy high on a lot of those lists. Like, top 5 for the most part, right? Or top 5 at least for many people. And top 3 even for some, right? There was a time, post-Marineford, where it was very questionable whether Mihawk was as strong as Admirals. That was, like, a legitimate thing that people... Because you gotta remember, like, Marineford, all these top tiers were there, everyone was fighting and everything like that. Mihawk does nothing impressive outside of cutting the iceberg. And, you know, you have the Vista scene. And, like, there's the bit where strong guys on the Marine side are being used to hype up the Whitebeard pirates. So Mihawk, he gets blocked by Jojo. Then you have Aokiji and Kizaru. It felt like Mihawk was being overshadowed by the Admirals almost. Like, yeah, like, Mihawk and the Admirals, like, they're all taking a shot at Whitebeard and the commanders. But, like, ultimately... You know, Mihawk got blocked by Jojo, which is, like, kind of the lowest on the totem. Like, he got used first. It was just what was, like, I'm not trying to slander Mihawk. I'm just saying, like, this is how things were kind of talked about at that time. Like, a lot of people were still saying, like, no, Mihawk's above Admirals and stuff. But you had people who were saying, like, post-Marineford. Like, keep in mind, at this point, we knew very little about Haki. We knew very little, like, all we're seeing are these overpowered devil fruits. And that's what's being talked about. Like, the Admiral's fruits seemed crazy over the course of the war. Whitebeard's Guru Guru no Mi. At this point, we still knew very little about Shanks' fighting style, so there was, like, still a lot of talk of, like, yeah, Shanks is probably still stronger than Mihawk because he's probably a hybrid fighter, or maybe he still has, like, maybe he picked up a Devil Fruit or something like that. Some people said Shanks might have the Time Devil Fruit back then and stuff. There was a lot of discussion back then. It would not have been controversial post-Marineford for people to be like, yeah, I think Mihawk's weaker than Aokiji. I think Mihawk's weaker than Kizaru. There was, like, a lot, like... I understand if that sounds like slander right now, but so much of what we understand now, which is like, now we really understand how much Mihawk was probably holding back then. Now we really understand that, yeah, Mihawk definitely probably has, like, advanced Conqueror's Haki. He's probably one of the best Haki users in the world. He has a Black Blade. Confirmed stronger with the sword than Shanks. Like, canonically, like, confirmed again by the Marines and everything like that. Yeah, like, Cross Guild is being called a Yonko tier crew as soon as Mihawk, like, because Mihawk's joined it and everything. So much has happened since then, but back then when, like, we had literally nothing for Mihawk, we got some, like, the problem is that we got plenty of moments for Mihawk in the war. It was just all unimpressive, and other characters, Marines, Admirals, etc., were getting, like, Whitebeard, Yonko, and Shanks were getting way more impressive moments. Like, it's just crazy right now. It's such a, like, if you told me from back then that, like, today Mihawk is, like, if I ran a poll of, like, is Mihawk, like, stronger than Shanks, it'd be like 55-45 either way or something like that, or, like, is Mihawk top 3 in the world, a lot of people would say yes. That past me would have been, like, so confused, because, like, I really liked Mihawk back then, so I felt like he was being underrated. I was like, I feel like Mihawk's at least as strong as the Admirals, but that wasn't necessarily... Like, Mihawk being greater than Admirals wasn't really the popular opinion at that point in time. Like, it would have been really a hard sell for someone to believe back then that, like, oh, Mihawk might be stronger than Akainu or something like that. Miss Supers, I'm catching him. Don't worry. Give me a second. Zex545, thanks for the 5. This is off topic, Morj, but looking at Zoro's track record with opponents, how racist do you think he is? To me, that's like, okay, it's funny, but it's like, at this point, it's we've gotten the joke plenty of times. We get it. Like, it's a played out joke in my book at this point. I think like, to me, it's not funny at this point. Like, you just heard the same joke a million times. So sorry, Zex, but I'm over that one pretty much. Umer Ula, thanks for the 2. Do you think Prime really beats Mihawk? Oh, shit. Fuck. Can I take a draw? Am I allowed to take a draw? Can I take a draw for that? I don't know. Because it's so difficult because it's just like, I think Prime Zoro will be stronger than Prime Rayleigh by a bit. But I also think Prime Zoro will be stronger than Prime Mihawk by a bit. We kind of know that one's going to happen for a fact. So that's the only real comparison I have. I'm just going to call it a draw. CK, thanks for the 5. My point is that the title Yonko or Admiral can vary widely. Oh, I see what you're saying. Example, if Straw Hats join Cross Guild, are they taking down World Government and the Marines? If the Straw Hats join Cross Guild, are they taking down World Government? No, I mean, I agree that Yonko and Admiral can vary wildly. But that's because I don't think that, like, when I refer, like, to me, I think that's missing the topic of this, like, the main topic, which is just, like, when we refer to Yonko, we're usually referring to characters of a certain level. Like, I'm not talking about Buggy when I talk about a Yonko, you know? Just because he's technically, there's a difference between, like semantics and nomenclature is what we're getting into here, but like there's a difference between like when we say like Yonko level, right? We're referring to characters like Kaido, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Shanks, right? And now Luffy. That's what we're referring to. When referring to Admiral level, we're referring to, you know, in general the Admirals seem closer in level and everything like that, but like we're referring to the Admirals for the most part, right? Buggy technically is a Yonko, but that's like an exception to what we're talking about for the most part. So, you know, it's not quite the same thing, I think. Cigar Verk, thanks for the 10. Bonnie is suddenly happy. You all suspecting Devon, but oh no, we covered this. We covered the Pizzora thing. CK says you missed my previous message, brother. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'll keep up the super chat tab, and I'll just keep looking at that from here on. I'm sorry about that. Tom, thanks for the 5. Don't know if this has been said yet, but this chapter really supports the idea of Bonnie joining the crew. Does it? I don't really know if it does, because like a lot of people are saying this chapter supports the idea that Bonnie is an imposter that's been like that Katarina Devon is masquerading as, and maybe a random Bonnie plus Sanji ship. I don't know about that, man. Sanji's got enough. I feel like at this point the Sanji Pudding ship feels like the most significant, and it's interesting that Pudding is back in like she's being made to be significant in the story again, you know, because that sets up some personal conflicts potentially for the Blackbeard pirate fight. Zex545 says, Morj, you missed my super chat from above. I think I got it now. So I was just like really slow to get to it. I'll try and stay in order with the tab. Eric, thanks for the 10. Hey Morj, do you think Oda will cuck us from Elbaf again by making Luffy want to go to Hachinosu after learning about Garp being missing in action? Do I think Oda will cuck us again? No, I think that shit, that is a possibility. I like to believe that Oda will hide that information so that Luffy doesn't go to Hachinosu. But Hachinosu is so close by. That is a scary possibility. I hope we get to Elbaf soon. Also, Kizaru low diffs anyone except Luffy. Come on, man. I don't think Kizaru's low diffing Zoro at this point. Come on. Like, even Kaido didn't get away without a permanent scar against Zoro, and that was when Zoro's like injured as fuck, you know? Like, I don't think there's anyone outside of Imu in the story that low diffs Zoro at this point, because if even Kaido is coming away from a fight with Zoro permanently scarred from the battle, then I think Zoro's giving anybody basically a fight. You know, like he's not gonna get low diffed by anyone, basically, you know. Cigar Verk, thanks for the 5. Luffy sensed a strong presence and got scared. Only one guy can do this. As I said, he has to appear at a certain time. Pin Zoro's on Egghead. Cigar, I Can't help but feel like you might get a little bit disappointed next chapter when Pinzor does not turn out to be the answer as to who Bonnie saw in the flashbacks and as to who is about to appear in the from beneath the clouds. Brownie Bot says, with the way the story is going, do you think Elbaf is actually going to be Usopp's arc? Yes, I still strongly believe that that's just important for him. Jake Jones, thanks for being a member, a Yonko tier member for 5 months. Monthly update. Can't wait for the Wano vid. I didn't know you do monthly updates. Sanji W chapter. And been loving your work as always. Stay well. Thanks, Jake Jones. Appreciate it. It was a Sanji W chapter, but it's so funny that like people are so unused to Sanji W's that it's got to be like we're breaking out the conspiracy theories, which is like Bonnie's a imposter, etc. But I think it's valid because Oda did seem to point out through Luffy that just seemed like a odd moment for Bonnie, and she had a good reason for it. But let me read her reason again. What did she say? She said, Bonnie says, this is where we need other translations, you know. By the way, I okay, let's talk about this for a second. Okay, let me do things in order. So first of all, Bonnie's saying, I see what a great man, skilled at cooking and at the same time strong in battle. Hey, why did you get in a good mood all of a sudden? So weird. I admit, I feel better now that I gave up on killing Vegapunk. So what somebody said earlier was that how would she know that she was trying to kill Vegapunk? Well, if Katarina Devon and Lafitte had been spying on the scene, they could have potentially... No, but when was the ship... They could have seen her trying to kill Vegapunk. But when was the ship... Got something in my eye. When was the Blackbeard Pirates ship approaching? Was it before or after the Bonnie scene? Okay, here's the other thing I want to talk about. Alright? OP scans. Now that I read a full chapter through them... I do sometimes read OP scans, by the way, for the record. Like, I just wait till TCB for the chapter review, but I'm not interested in getting spoiled and stuff any more than I already do get on Twitter, so I do often read OP scans. But this was the first time I kind of, read it close. Like, I'll do a skim of OP scans to get the gist of stuff. Then I read TCB carefully. But this was the first time I really read OP scans straight up. It's not that bad. I just wish they didn't exist. So that we didn't have this complicated ass scan situation, because TCB is just the better scans group. But they're not that bad. Anyway, beyond that, here's my question. Can anybody tell me off the top of their heads, when was it shown that there is a ship of the Blackbeard Pirates approaching Egghead Island? What chapter was that? Can somebody tell me what chapter that was? Cigar Verk, thanks for the 10. When people power skill Zoro, they conveniently ignore the rooftop part and the context. Injured. I agree. Say he barely defeated Yonko 1 rather than he didn't even use Ashra against King. Well, he was healed when he fought King. But once he got the... I judge him more by like when he got the power up. After he got the power up, he beat King relatively straightforward, you know? He is grandson of Pinzoro. That's true. They don't talk about that enough. They don't talk about the grandson of Pinzoro part. The Ashra thing is just hard to include in any Zoro conversation because, like, he didn't use Ashra against King, but he also just generally doesn't use Ashra in general. Like, didn't use it to try and cut the birdcage, didn't use it against, like, Fujitora, to me, Ashra, my interpretation has always been that because it's a Conqueror's Haki ability, right? That's why it only comes out in certain moments that are not 100% in Zoro's control, you know? So I think, like, I don't think he was capable of bringing it out against King. But I think now that he's mastered Conqueror's Haki, I think now he could potentially bring it out on a whim in a fight, potentially. But we'd have to see him against someone strong, because that's just a headcanon theory. No, I'm not a traitor. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't that bad. I'm still, like, on TCB's team. But I'm just like, yeah, it's not like I'm reading this chapter and it's unintelligible. There have been really bad OP scans chapters that I've read, though. This one is not as bad as some of those. It's 1079. Okay, so 1079 is when that happens. What is the chapter that Bonnie is last seen attacking Vegapunk before the flashback starts? Okay, 1078 is Bonnie. Blackbeard Pirates 1079. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so they wouldn't have that context unless I mean, it wouldn't have that context unless it's something like Bonnie completes her flashback. By that time, Katarina Devon and Lafitte and such are there. She turns back to Vegapunk or whatever. Maybe makes some mention of either she no longer wants to kill him, so she mentions how she was trying to kill him, or she goes back to trying to kill him. Who knows? Then maybe she's caught off guard. It can still happen. It can still make sense that they knew that she was trying to kill Vegapunk. It's possible. Leonardus Martin says Ashura with Advanced Conquerors Hockey will be insane when it happens. Ashura already is Advanced Conquerors. It's just not in his control. Cigar Verk, thanks for the 5. Fuji didn't use anything on Birdcage. It was clearly a plot device. He doesn't use Ashura until and unless he's pushed. King was clearly below his level. I think Zoro's had his back against the wall. I just don't think he can use his Conqueror's Haki stuff until he mastered it during the King's fight. Like, I don't know. Hopefully we get some clarification for that next time Zoro breaks out Ashura, but we gotta wait and see. I really want to see what happened. Like, the fact that we missed Bonnie's flashback stuff, I wonder if we're gonna get that section of the arc filled in. Like, what the hell happened? You know, because I can understand skipping the Seraphim fights at the end of the day. They caught him with the bubbles and stuff, cool. Kaku, however he got injured, cool. But the Bonnie flashback is character-wise important, you know? Hmm. He didn't use it against Oars. Like, to me, I just don't think it's a thing that he can use. He could have used regularly. My take was that he used it like when he was pushed to a certain point spirit-wise. That's kind of how I saw it. AJK says Kizaru's implied to be very strong. He offered Akainu to invade Wano by himself. Kizaru's built different. I mean, yeah, it's just like I don't think Kizaru could have successfully defeated Kaido and Big Mom by himself. So, you know. Alright, guys, I'm probably going to call the stream in a few more minutes. Let me see if there's any... Because now we're at a point where it's like... Now we're circling random questions of like Zoro's Ashura, pin Zoro, pin Kizaru. Now we're talking about Mihawk versus Shanks, I see. What do I think Saturn's role in this arc is now? Asks Mango the God. Yeah, I didn't realize that Kizaru would just be the vanguard in this. Like, I thought that we would be getting all the fight matchups relatively at the same time. I didn't realize that Kizaru is just making a beeline and we deal with him first, potentially, and then Saturn. But I don't know. Derek Miles says Kizaru can't even break Sentomaru's guard. I mean, Kizaru got through him. By the end of the chapter, it seems like whatever's going on there, Kizaru made it through. Right? It looks like Kizaru's about to pop up. AJK is saying, Morj, have you seen Good Blood and Tangling God of War? One of the best video game analysis. He has, like, your story perspective. That'd be cool. I have to finish God of War still. I haven't finished it. Again, I don't really... Like, I just don't... Again, I'm like... I get the story character appeal a bit more now that I've gotten a little bit further along. I can understand that. I respect that. Leave that alone for now. The gameplay loop is just not a fun gameplay loop for me at this point in time. But I do want to finish it because it's not like a long one. Umer Ula says, do you think Usopp gets Mjolnir since he has a gag about heavy hammers? I've seen that theory before. I forget. I've heard that before, and I'm so curious about Loki. I feel like everyone can forget about him. Can't wait. I feel like Loki's gonna be important to Usopp's storyline because Loki is this god of tricks and like lying and stuff like that, and he was important, right? The birth of him, right, was important as far as I remember. And if Elbaf's going to be an arc about that, that'll be really interesting because, you know, Loki goes against a lot of the Norse values. Like, the god Loki goes against a lot of the Norse values. So I think it'd be cool if Usopp finds a friend in that sense. The Mjolnir idea is cool. I don't really know if, like, if I'd like Usopp getting, like, a really powerful ass hammer, because I like the idea that Usopp uses simple tools, like relatively weak tools, but just has to make really good use of them. But, you know, maybe he earns it, like, maybe it's just an earned, like, it feels really earned by the time he gets it, you know? Ray Uchiha, thanks for the 5. Who would win, Aokiji or Roy Mustang? Oh, come on. I like Roy Mustang quite a bit as a character. Very cool character, but Aokiji, most One Piece characters versus most Full Metal Alchemist characters would be a slaughter. And Aokiji versus Roy Mustang would be, put it this way, Aokiji would not need to use his Devil Fruit. Mags says, Morj, Saturn said humans are no different from insects. Is he not human? Please answer. Yeah, I mean, the Celestial Dragons consider themselves to be divine. They consider themselves to be gods, basically. They obviously have the same blood as humans, as far as we know, but they consider themselves to be holy beings, very literally, right? So, they view humans as beneath them. I like that line and that little bit of dialogue from Saturn quite a bit. I think just adds to the ideas of, just another little piece to add to the ideas of the series, and, you know, potentially shape some future ideas that Imu, etc. espouses later down the line. Archangel, thanks for bringing Yonko to your member for 3 months. What if Loki is the Elbaf name of Joy Boy? The Nika Fruit's antics will seem like tricks for most people. Oh, that's an interesting... Okay, so I don't buy the Loki being Elbaf name for Joy Boy thing necessarily, because I guess you're saying, like, if the new prince was named after named after Joy Boy, I suppose, because Joy Boy was called Loki during that era. That's interesting. But it is a really cool point that the Nika Fruit antics will seem like tricks for most people, which may go against the Elbaf philosophy or fighting style, which could be really, really cool to see. That could be really, really interesting to see, especially because, like, you know, Shanks is at an Elbaf, and, like, his fighting style is pure hockey, the purest fighting style, I suppose. It's a cool idea. Wade Turner says, do you believe Law is stronger than Kid? This is such a bizarre one because it's just like, I felt like Kid is supposed to be written to be, I felt like Oda's, like, trying to portray Kid as the more important, like, the closer of Luffy's two rivals to Luffy, even though neither of them are close. Like, I felt like during the Big Mom, because people latch on to the Big Mom fight, like, Big Mom saying, like, Trafalgar, your abilities are, like, really doing damage and stuff to me, something along those lines. But then there was also another line that was written in, which was, like, Law complaining to Kid. He was like, every time I do a move, you do, like, an even bigger move to, like, upstage me or something like that. So, to me, I'm reading that, I'm like, okay, is this Oda trying to, like, pay lip service to both of them? Like, does Oda think that we, the reader, are getting the impression that Kid is upstaging Law, and therefore he had Law complain about it? Because that's not what it looks like from the reading experience. So I'm just trying to decipher what Oda's trying to do with that fight. Because throughout the story, Kid was the one that was portrayed more so as, like, yeah, this is the guy that is, like, the dark parallel to Luffy. Like, not dark parallel, but, like, the closest parallel to Luffy amongst the supernovas. We got a lot of that, especially during their Udon stint in Act 2. And then, you know, you're just reading the actual fight scenes and everything, and it's like, man, Kid has really nothing up his sleeve. Nothing at all. Nothing. Like, truly, truly nothing. Like, the railgun was probably the most disappointing finisher move you could ever have had for Kid, because the attack just does not seem powerful. It just, in the manga, when Kid first did his railgun attack, I shit you not, to me, it looked like something that pre-time skip Frankie could come up with. To me, it just looked like a pre-time skip Frankie attack, basically. Like, the first time we see it in the manga, the panel is so unimpressive. It just looks like Big Mom's being shot with a cannon. Yeah, characters can shoot, like, cannons are on fucking ships and stuff. I understand it's a railgun, but it's more so just like there's very little visual flair to it or anything. It just looks like the most straightforward attack ever. Anyway, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but, like, is Kid stronger than Law? My perspective is that it's possible, maybe even likely, that Oda was trying to frame Kid as stronger than Law or something like that, at least for a good portion of the story. But just the way shit has played out, it seems almost logically impossible to argue that Kid is stronger than Law. It just seems so absurd at this point, right? Like, I really don't know what Oda was doing with that Big Mom fight or Kid's moveset in general, but it just seems laughable at this point. Like, if Oda wasn't portraying them side by side repeatedly, it would just seem absurd to even think that they're supposed to be, like, the same level. But, you know. GDN, thanks for the 5. What do you think Kizaru's ideals are? Him refusing an order from Saturn seems like a contradiction to his cog in the machine line last week. I think that, so I like the fact that we're seeing more of the human side of Kizaru here, because what's being played up is past bonds that he has with certain characters, right? So he is a cog in the machine, so he's following orders, but ultimately when he's being ordered to do certain things that internally are, you know, have emotional effects on him, like, or an emotional component for him, there is, like, a human level of hesitation there. I think it is way too early for me to... Actually, I don't know, because I think I gotta go back and, like, reread a bunch of Kizaru shit, because maybe there's enough there that, like, we have a good idea already. It'll depend, because I want to do a Kizaru video, but I don't want to do it till I feel like we have a solid grasp of his character, kind of like we did with Aokiji and Garp. So I'm waiting on... I think I need to do a Kizaru reread a little bit, but, like, I like what we're getting from him, this character, and this chapter and last chapter quite a bit, because it feels like subtle setup for potentially deeper character writing, I think. Lancer Spear says you said the opposite before. I said the opposite before, and that was before we got the like, for Kid and Law, right? That was before we got the Big Mom... Sorry, not the Big Mom. The Blackbeard and Shanks scenes. Once we got the Blackbeard and Shanks scenes, I was just like, I'm done defending this dude. Kid is ass. That was the nail in the coffin, basically. Because I definitely felt like in the Big Mom fight, even though Law was doing more damage, Kid had better 1v1 moments. Because Law didn't have 1v1 moments, right? But then Law got 1v1 moments versus Blackbeard. So Law gets the moments that I was waiting on for him. So that argument's gone. I also felt like during the general course of the story, yeah, Kid was portrayed as more of a rival to Luffy than Law. But now we're at a point where it's just like, it doesn't even feel like Oda's portraying either of them as rivals to Luffy anymore. So that argument's gone. And then it was like, okay, during the Big Mom fight, Big Mom is commenting Law's stuff is injuring more. But then Law is saying that Kid's attacks keep upstaging him. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting the sense that Oda's trying to say that he's trying to frame Kid as, like, even though he's doing a weird job about it, he's saying, like, Law's attacks are doing more damage, but Kid's doing the flashier, bigger finishing moves, something like that. And ultimately, Kid was the one who got to do the final blow, which was actually blasting Big Mom through the stuff. So Kid was... It was weird because, like, Oda was giving Kid technically the spotlight, but Law was being made to look way cooler doing everything he did. So I was like, okay, maybe Oda is trying to frame Kid as being the slightly more significant character than Law. It's just that Law's abilities are cooler, so Law can't help but look cooler at this point. But so much time has passed since that I just think that that's, like, if you compare with the other two, like, the other aspects of everything around the Kid and Law writing, like the Blackbeard fight, just the nature of Law's abilities, stuff like that, I'm just like, it just feels so like, I also just dislike Kid so much at this point. I'm just like, I don't care. I'm done trying to argue that you're as strong as Law. I'm done with it. Or stronger than Law. Umair Ula, no, covered this. Covered this. Covered this. Am I caught up? I think I'm caught up. Nope, I'm not. Mr. Crescent, always good to see you. Thanks for the 10. Off topic, but do you think the Luffy-Lucci fight is only enjoyable with the context to the arc, or is it good on its own? I've shown it to some friends who've never seen One Piece and they still enjoyed it. The Luffy-Lucci fight... Okay, I was thinking of the sorry, not the the Egghead Island fight. I was like, that one? How do you even show people that? It's not even in the anime yet. But I think the Luffy-Lucci fight is phenomenal, even outside context, because I think that is the first fight in One Piece. Like, we're talking about Enisabi here. I think it's the first fight in One Piece, anime-wise, that, like, I remember this as a kid. It was, like, One Piece was still the only anime I watched. I was aware of other anime and stuff, but, like, the Luffy-Lucci fight was the first time One Piece really went, like, that traditional anime fighting route of, like, characters, like, moving really fast, really high-paced, high-octane action with, like, characters disappearing, reappearing, disappearing, reappearing, stuff like that. That and other anime had been doing for God knows how long. So I remember when the Luffy-Lucci fight came out in the anime, like, lots of comments in those YouTube videos were stuff like, this is what One Piece fights like finally people understand how cool One Piece fights are and stuff like that. And there were comments from people who were like, never watched One Piece before, but now I get I don't remember exact words and stuff, but you get what I'm saying? Like, people who had, like, both people who had been big One Piece fans were, like, happy that we were finally getting a fight animated like that. And then people that weren't One Piece fans were, like, finally tuning in and being like, okay, One Piece fights seem a lot more serious than I thought. Because One Piece really did have the reputation compared to Bleach and Naruto as being the more kiddish and cartoony of the big three. And I think just generally in the anime sphere for a long time, One Piece was kind of considered more, silly and childish, basically, for a long time. Because people really didn't, like, One Piece does such a phenomenal job of having, like, such a, just a goofy outer surface level appearance, with Luffy being the main character, a rubber ability, friends sailing the ocean and stuff like that, and lots of goofily designed characters and villains and stuff. It does such a good job hiding the far more significant, very real world, real world conflicts and real world problems within the One Piece world that, like, reflect a lot more, I guess, deep themes, I would say, than most other shonen series did at that point in time. So, it's a strength of One Piece, but at the same time, for a long time, it was a weakness that held the series back, I guess, from as much popular acclaim in certain countries. But the Luffy versus Lucci fight, I think, was the first big step I can recall to a lot of people starting to acknowledge One Piece as kind of like a badass series, because it had its first badass fight. And then Marineford was obviously the arc in the anime that really blew the doors open, and everybody was just like, that was something that everybody could point to and be like, holy shit, like, One Piece is doing a huge, like, real fucking giant world war arc, and it's insane. I still saw, like, in random comment, like, because there were videos that would come out, like, top 10 anime fights of the year and stuff, and, like, Luffy versus Lucci would be in there, and I'd still see, like, some YouTube comments of stuff being like, lol, One Piece's best fight is, like a rubber guy versus a cat and stuff like, and that would, like, upset me, because I'm like, oh, they didn't even watch the arc, like, you don't know, like, this is so cool, but, it is what it is. JWP, thanks a lot. Also, the difference in how Law and Kid left the story is laughable. Law got a whole fight plus escape. Meanwhile, Kid got a future sight feat and then sunk into the ocean. I still think that they didn't necessarily leave the story. Maybe Kid did, maybe Law did. I've gone back and forth on it. I think shortly after it happened, I thought it was very, very possible that Kid's just gone. Now I just don't know if that's the case, because I feel like since then, Oda's been... Like, I think here's what changed, I guess. One, it was so abrupt when it happened that it was like, I almost didn't keep track of the full context of the story, like how much Kid's story has been built up and everything like that, I guess. You kind of forget about it, so I didn't really grasp how much Oda was throwing away, but he really is throwing away a lot, especially with just, like, writing Kid and Law to be the ones to defeat Big Mom. It's just such an arbitrary storyline to have if they're just throwaway characters at the end of the day. But the bigger thing that kind of shifted my mindset to like, okay, maybe Kid-in-Law, it's not the end for them. The bigger thing that shifted there was just that I felt like when it happened, okay, Oda's cutting down on plot lines and unnecessary characters. However, since that happened, since those chapters, it's kind of been going the other direction where it's like, oh my god, we're this late in the story, and Oda's still actually almost expanding on his plot lines and characters, you know? Now we've got 9 holy knights to deal with. Now all of the Gorosei are actually a big deal. Now, you know, among the Marines, we've got, like, all these newcomers to keep track of. Like, it's not just Kobe, it's, like, fucking Prince Groose and, like, these, like, Akainu's daughter and shit. Our assumption. You know, like, I feel like the story's gotten more stuffed with so just the direction things are going, I feel like Oda still, I don't think he actually necessarily, I think it's very possible he didn't actually axe Kid-in-Law's storylines. I think it's possible. I'm leaning towards, I think that their stories aren't done. Law's is probably not done, and I think like for me slightly above 50% chance that Kid's storyline isn't done. So I'm not writing it off just yet, just because I feel like Oda is still very willing to. The things I saw as Oda crossing stuff off, I quickly realized isn't necessarily him crossing stuff off. Like even stuff like just Cross Guild. For me, I thought that it's very possible that Cross Guild wouldn't do much. Like I thought it'd be involved in the plot, obviously, but I thought it was also very possible that Cross Guild just doesn't have a major role in the final saga necessarily, but it's just a cool concept, and maybe, you know, we see some cool clashes and stuff. But Oda just devoted, like, he just went out of his way to write a whole nother chapter devoted entirely to saying, like, no, Cross Guild is very much in the story, and it's going to, like, make some big moves and stuff, too. So, because of that, it just feels very much like Oda's intent on incorporating as much of the pieces he has in play as possible, so, and still adding new ones to the game. So, because of that, I'm kind of just like, yeah, the Kid stuff, it might just be a red herring for the moment. I don't know. Maybe. I don't mind if Kid's gone. For the record. Tom, thanks for the 10. Bonnie's dialogue with Luffy felt very Straw Hat-esque, and she fit perfectly into the panel of the entire crew. The panels of everybody in them, between this chapter, end of last chapter, and right before the Vegapunk murder mystery stuff, like a dozen or so chapters back, there have been some really good panels of just, like, everybody together that I've been really liking. She fit perfectly into the panel of the entire crew. Also, maybe a possible contrast to Sabaody, where the crew grows larger versus splitting up. That's an interesting idea. I'm still on the train of Bonnie's dialogue was made to look suspicious to us, so I'm just like, Katarina Devon. That's what I'm thinking. But if we are meant to take it just straightforward, yeah, it would be cool if Bonnie joins. I also don't mind the Straw Hat count just being what it is right now, honestly. Matthew Ponton, thanks for the 10. Seeing people who haven't watched/read One Piece seeing Gear 5th and calling it goofy and stupid without knowing the importance of it in the story breaks my heart. Judging a story from power-ups is dumb. I agree. I feel, I don't know what the general reaction to Gear 5th has been from, like, people that don't know One Piece at all, but I thought most people liked Gear 5th in the anime. I understand if some people called it, like, goofy and stupid, but, like, that's what was funny to me when, like, I started talking about, like, I thought that they should have committed harder to some of the Looney Tunes stuff, and a lot of the responses, at least on Twitter that I saw, that surprised me, because I didn't realize this was the place a lot of people were coming from. People were like, Morj, like, so many people are calling, like are upset that like, not so many non-One Piece fans are so upset and critiquing it because they're like, Gear 5 looks too stupid and goofy and stuff, and you're here saying that it doesn't look Looney Tunes enough. That doesn't make any sense. I'm like, why doesn't it make sense? Like, why do we care what non-One Piece fans think of a power-up that they have no context for? I'm coming from the One Piece perspective. From the One Piece perspective, I'm like, no, this was like a really fucking silly moment. I feel like they could have played it up. Sorry. I feel like they could, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I could see why outsiders would think that it's too goofy and silly. And that's probably why my criticism. I thought the clips I've seen of 1072 have been perfect, like, phenomenal. I just had criticism of 2 clips from 1071. That's it. Thought it was a great episode besides that. But my criticism, I can understand why that was maybe a little jarring or confusing to some people, because it's like, Morj doesn't like it because it's not Looney Tunes. Like, on one hand, we're defending it from people who are saying it's too silly, Morj just coming in saying it's too epic. What the fuck? I just think that's kind of funny. That that like you're like if you're like a hardcore person trying to defend Gear Fifth from all sides, like in the anime right now, it's got to be a huge headache to be hearing like one thing from all these people that you're trying to fight the allegations that it's too silly, and then from here you're hearing like it's too epic. It's like my take is basically like I don't care what a non-One Piece fan thinks of Gear Fifth because they wouldn't have the context to understand why this is really cool for the story. You get what I'm saying? You know, I care about people who've actually been reading One Piece for, 1,000 something chapters, who have the context. How do they feel seeing it brought to life? Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. Do you think Neo-Mads will join Cross Guild? They fit aesthetically and would provide solid officer-level fighters that a Yonko crew needs. Yeah, I mean, like, even, like, fucking Germa is no pushover at all. Will they join Cross Guild? I mean, you already got a clown running it. You could add Caesar Clown and stuff. That'd be funny. I just don't know about Neo-Mads, like, they're clearly significant in a way. And, Cross Guild joining up and Neo-Mads joining up, it feels like it parallels in a certain way. I just don't know if Neo-Mads is being written to some other direction, but I do think it'd be really cool if they joined up with Cross Guild. It would just make that... It would make Cross Guild feel more like a legitimate Yonko crew. Because right now, it's really just Mihawk, who's, he fits the bill. And then it's Crocodile. And we don't even really know where Crocodile falls. We have no idea. Like, maybe he's first mate level at this point. We don't know. But we'll give Crocodile benefit of the doubt, right? But then it's no one. Then you've got nobody. Then you've got, like... Again, I've harped on this many... No, you've got Daz Bones. You got Daz Bones. Then you've got nobody. So, if Cross Guild got some backup, that would be probably very useful right about now. I'm a Pirate says, earlier when I asked, do you think One Piece's third act will be as good or better than pre-time skip earlier, I meant Final Saga versus pre-time skip, my bad. Oh yeah, no worries. I'm sorry if it felt like I nitpicked that or something like that, but yeah, just if you're comparing like post to pre, again, like pre is act 1, post is act 2. If you're comparing the two, for me, again, it's like, I think the potential of the Final Saga is, to me, I think the potential of the Final Saga is like unprecedented from anything I've read, just because the story of One Piece and the way it's built and built and built in the world and characters and the ridiculous number of plot lines and storylines and lore that are all just, and like thematic ideas that have all been like converging and, like slowly all coming together for one huge finale that feels very, very well orchestrated, very well blueprinted, thought out, etc. And it feels like Oda is willing to take his time with like the whole Garp. I can't tell you enough how that whole Garp raid on Hachinosu gave me ridiculous optimism for the future of the story, because it's just like Oda willing to take his time to just let a full outside world scene play out that is only important for side characters, but does wonders for setting up the future ideas of the story and one solid foundation plot-wise, the future of the Marines, of what like a much bigger puzzle piece needs, puzzle needs to look like, right? But Oda's taking the time to do everything. But that's a ramble for another day, right? Or a video, etc. But in general, I think the Final Saga has a ridiculous amount of potential. Do I think it'll be better than pre-time skip? The thing that I've said the most is that for me personally, I think for me to like it better than pre-time skip, for me personally, I would just need to feel the same emotional highs I did in pre-time skip. So for me, that's like storylines like, like Robin's, like I Want to Live, her entire backstory, or Nami's, or like Chopper's, or something like that, or, things like that. But, or even like the emotional highs we got out of the Marine Ford arc and everything like that, right? But that's like subjectively, would I like this one or that one more, right? Because there's so many aspects that are about to happen in the Final Saga that are just going to top the pre-time skip pretty much no matter what, right? Just in terms of scale, complexity of plot, like, I guess hype, how epic it feels, right? Lore-wise, so much is going to just be more than what we ever got pre-time skip. So, Um, I really don't know. I think we just gotta wait, let it play out, and everything like that. Like, yeah, that's a boring answer, I suppose, but I think the potential is there. I'll just say that. I definitely think the potential is there for the final saga to be so good that most people will say by the end One Piece is done that if not post time skip, I wouldn't be surprised if many people by the end of the story are saying the final saga was the best saga of One Piece, right? So maybe not all of post time skip, or maybe they apply it to all of post time skip, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the end people are saying the conclusion was the best part of the entire story. Again, for me to feel that way would probably depend on emotional stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised if the final saga delivers on that as well. You know? Schmike the Melts, thanks for the 2. Hi Morj, any death predictions coming up soon? I actually do have some, because like characters are dying left and right. Obviously minor ones at this point, but you know, like we can dispose of a few Vegapunk bodies, but I do have some stuff that I think is very, very possible for the final saga. Off the top, like I do want to do a video on it, but off the top, I think the basic one that most people can agree on is like Shanks is a good chance of being on the chopping block, right? I still think Law likely dies by the end. There's a couple others that I think are very solidly likely, but we'll save those for videos. I'm gonna answer just a couple more. These are going to be the last few basically, and then I think I'm gonna have to call it a day. John Rossi, thanks for the 5. Do you think the other warlords will join up with Cross Guild for more backup, specifically Doflamingo, Moria, and maybe Hancock? So this is something I talked about a little bit earlier. Moria, I think, has the best shot. Doflamingo, I think, is just a bit too evil. Because, like, if you look at the gang of, like, hypothetical gang, right? Mihawk, Buggy, Moria, Hancock, they're not the best people. You know, like, they're morally questionable people. But they're not, like, pure evil at the end of the day, right? Like, Doflamingo wanted to wipe out, he would have happily wiped out an entire island, right? He's killed so many innocent people. He's caused so much evil, so much suffering, so much oppression. He's just like one of the most heartless characters in One Piece, period. I think only Enel probably tops him, right? Like, Doflamingo is pure, just the nastiest, most hateful character. I think if you throw Doflamingo into Cross Guild, it really changes their vibe. You know what I mean? Like, it makes them a much less, like, we all like Doflamingo as a villain, but like if you throw Doflamingo into Cross Guild, it's just like, this isn't like a fun, quirky group of like anti-heroes anymore. It's just like they've got, it's like throwing Hitler in there practically. You get what I'm saying? Like, Doflamingo literally believes that his blood is superior to everybody else's, and everybody else he can just kill. Like, he can kill the entire island of Dressrosa if he so wants to. And he's, you know, it's very different. Crocodile is in there, and I still think Crocodile is probably a little too far past the line to still be called in the gray area. But I think, like, we've also seen enough of Crocodile's heroism and stuff like that, and like the other side of him. And we see him more as, like, maybe a more likable figure over the course of the Marineford Impel Down arc, that he can be slipped into Cross Guild, and it kind of completes a bit of a spectrum of, like, good to kind of bad characters, but not, like, no one truly, like pure evil, I suppose. So I would say Doflamingo maybe doesn't fit, but he would be the coolest one to add, if that makes sense. So I think Moria is a good fit. Hancock, the only tricky thing is that, like, she hates men, very literally. So, like, it's kind of just, like, she only works with Luffy. Like, that's the only person that she would be probably willing to work for. And then Rayleigh she has a bond with. But besides that, I just don't know why would she want to link up with, like, the other Shichibukai just for survival. It's also her pride and stuff. I don't know. Tom, thanks a lot. Luffy could save Bonnie from Kizaru to show evolution from losing his crew to Kizaru. Maybe Oda gave Bonnie the lightsaber to have a way to hit Kizaru. Yeah, I'm not thinking too much about Bonnie versus Kizaru. It's also partly because, like, I think Saturn even said, like, Bonnie's not of importance at this point. She's just a little girl. But yeah, I would love to see Luffy even protect some of his crewmates from Kizaru. I think that would be a cool scene. And I'm going to call this the last one. Apollina Top Hat, thanks for the 2. Are you sad there's no Buggy Seraphim? Because I am. If there was a Buggy Seraphim, they'd basically find out that Buggy was a fraud all along. Because they're like, why do we have a... we got a defective one here, basically. Like, why is this one kind of just suck at fighting and had no fighting skills imprinted from genetic memories? Okay, guys. I'm going to call it here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And I don't know what we're doing Thursday when the actual... or Wednesday, Thursday when the actual chapter drops. I'm going to figure it out. But chapter review, expect to drop towards the end of the week. Video tomorrow, I think, is a very, very good video. So watch out for that one. I think that's a really cool one. And yeah. I will talk to you guys later. Thanks.